So, you want to hear a retrospective, huh? One about Borderlands? Well, I have a retrospective for you. Borderlands is a series widely known about today, a massive success in pretty much every respect, from numerous sequels, some fantastic to middling spin-offs, and even a terrible movie. And what is a successful franchise without a terrible movie? Not a franchise at all, is what I'll tell you. And all of this has taken the developer behind the series, Gearbox Software, to great heights. But what were they like in 2009, you ask? Well, things were very different back then. You see, Gearbox was in search of their own vault, their own source of fame and fortune. They were small time, a bunch of chumps making Half-Life expansions and PC ports of Tony Hawk and Halo. But they wanted to be bigger than just a port company. What they needed was a veritable moneymaker that could really set themselves up as an industry powerhouse. And as luck would have it, there was gold on the ceiling in the gaming industry that had yet to be mined. They were just the first to see it. It was gold that could utilize their expertise making first-person shooters and combining it with the deathly addictive gameplay loop of Diablo, a game where loot and damage numbers rain from the heavens as you destroy everything in your path. It was like mixing peanut butter and chocolate. It was something so good, it was a wonder why no one had done it before then. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know if Borderlands still holds up today, don't you? I mean, it was a game that was the first of its kind, and some gold can have impurities. Well, you are in just the right place, my friend. Why don't you stay a while and listen so I can tell you everything about Borderlands, about the foes I have fought, the weapons I found, and the gold that Gearbox and many players around the world found in their journey across the wastes of Pandora. This is the start of a series-wide retrospective of the Borderlands franchise, starting here where it all began. So, if you want to see more of this retrospective in the future, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to help the channel grow more, consider joining my Patreon. But enough about me. You're here for Borderlands and the story of Pandora. Open up your red chest, grab your favorite Jacob's revolver and a glass of skag milk, because this is Borderlands, a retrospective. Like any good Borderlands game, it begins and ends on Pandora, a dangerous and hopeless porta-potty of a planet that serves as nothing but a rest stop on your intergalactic road trip. It's an everlasting dust bowl that encapsulates the entire atmosphere. No one likes it. No one wants to live there, not even its native inhabitants. Hell, the fact that the planet is capable of cultivating life to begin with is a miracle in and of itself. It's like the cosmos said, let's make a terrible planet for shits and giggles and curse anyone who dares come to the planet with everlasting torment. Thus, Pandora, a no-good, worthless hunk of dirt. That is, until there are whispers in the solar system about this thing called the Vault, a piece of ancient alien architecture that could be housing anything your heart could desire. Money, fame, power, women, or as the story goes. And like clockwork, now everyone wants a little piece of whatever could be sitting inside the vault. Doesn't matter what's inside it. All they know is that they want it. And that's good enough reason for them to start dumping unreasonable amounts of capital into the planet in an attempt to find it. Suddenly, this literal waste of space planet is the center of attention for corporations all over the universe, which is where our story begins. They say first impressions are everything, And Borderlands does not take that for granted. Our first few minutes exposed to Borderlands sets a mood unlike any other, and it's something I still don't think has been replicated. The camera lens is blown out by blinding light as we slowly pan down to see a barren landscape of rocky mountains, a dusty road, and a dilapidated Pandoran tourism billboard. The signage is practically falling from the board as we see a skag, a type of alien mutt creature, crawl out from behind the billboard and show us that, yes, we aren't in Kansas anymore. I mean, I know Toto doesn't have a three-piece jawline, and no sooner than we are introduced to this alien dog is it run over by a bus with no concept of a speed limit. We then change shots to look at the dead skag dangling off the grill of the bus. Clearly this bus has places to be, and roadkill won't stop it. Does that say something about the planet, or the driver, or both? Doesn't matter. This is the Borderlands. There's this literary method called show don't tell, and Borderlands does more showing in 30 seconds than a lot of pieces of media can do in 1 hour. There is an undeniable flavor all being showcased at once, all of it being emphasized by the backing track of Cage the Elephant's Ain't No Rest for the Wicked, a song that embraces the twang and blues of the band's home state of Kentucky to create a sound that I personally don't think they themselves have been able to replicate since their debut album. But there is a reason this is their #1 track of all time. It is a banger start to stop. Since I can't play it without YouTube sending its copyright hitmen after me, let me elucidate it for you. The song is a ballad told from the first-person perspective of a narrator coming across multiple people, a sex worker, a mugger, and a preacher, who are all attempting to make a living in this world through some less than savory methods. The sex worker trying to initiate prostitution upon the narrator, the mugger trying to steal from the narrator, and a preacher getting arrested for stealing money from his own church. The song isn't about crime and putting down the act of crime itself, but rather the lengths people go to in order to seek thrills as well as get paid until we all eventually bite the dust. It's a poignant and fun song that doesn't stray far from its message, that there ain't no rest for the wicked, and money don't grow on trees, that we got bills to pay and mouths to feed, and there ain't nothing in this world for free. So if the visuals didn't tell you everything you need to know, this song certainly helps get the message across. The lyrics do a great job of explaining the tone we are going for here, and the instrumentation of multiple acoustic guitars layering on top of each other give you a feeling of a Western. Like the world is a Wild West where every person you stumble across is just as lawless and unforgiving as the last. But we all have to be this way for a reason. Who needs subtlety? This is the Borderlands, bitch. We ain't got time for that. These musical intros would become the standard for the series going forward, because they do such a fantastic job of setting the scene for every entry, showcasing the stakes, the vibe, and how things have changed since the prior entry. Genuinely brilliant work all around. A whole video could be made dissecting the intro alone, but we got stuff to talk about. We are introduced to our cast of playable characters on the bus, are appropriately named Vault Hunters, the Hunter, the Siren, the Soldier, and the Brick, all of whom we will discuss in more detail later, but for now, we need to pick one while our driver, Marcus, berates every single one of them.
You with the sniper rifle and the crazy mask. You look like a Traxican wrestler moonlighting as a dominatrix, man. And you, soldier man. Are those armor pieces from the Crimson Lance you're wearing? And what's your story, young lady? What can you do? Perhaps you can bake us all a wonderful cake. And you, beef stick in the back. I'm not gonna make fun of you. Your burps smell of blood, and you growl like a rabid animal.
I opt to go with Brick during my main playthrough, a character I was the least familiar with. I've done full leveled playthroughs with every other character on other consoles, so this felt the most appropriate for me. I select Brick and immediately have visions of a live action woman telling me not to tell anyone I see her and that she's here to help me. She's calling herself my guardian angel. Yeah, you know what? Bet. I'm in the middle of a desolate planet with no help at all. At this point, I'll take help from this live-action angel projecting herself directly into my eyeballs. She seems nice. Brick starts to make his way off the bus, and our ever-faithful bus driver, Marcus, gives us the best pep talk he can muster.
Well, we're here. Don't worry about saying goodbye. I'm sure we'll be doing this all again soon enough. Get off my bus.
From here on out, it's just you, your guns, and the blood of your enemies getting you going as you begin your search for the vault. It's you in this constant uphill battle against the planet of Pandora, and I am totally here for it. The bus drives off, and all we are left with is this little robot in front of us, flipping off the bus as it drives away. Awesome. He introduces himself as Claptrap, a Hyperion steward bot who will help us get acquainted with our stay on Pandora. He provides us with a heads-up display, courtesy of the Doll Corporation, as well as the new use stations provided by Hyperion to ensure a happy and healthy stay. Just an onslaught of goodwill gestures from several corpos right off the bat. Very interesting. Now, I like Claptrap. I think he's funny. I've always thought he was funny. And his voice actor, David Eddings, delivers a genuinely one-of-a-kind performance as the little robot, managing to deliver deeply morbid lines about death and dismemberment with so much personality, all of which is thanks to his always-on customer service voice. It's the first sign that you have finally arrived at the corporatized hellscape that is Pandora. We hope you enjoy your stay. You would think it gets old, but to me, it is inseparable from Borderlands as a series. Claptrap takes us through the basic tutorials, how to walk, how to jump, crouch, and then leads us to the bandit problem plaguing the nearby civilian town of Fyrestone. Thankfully, we came prepared with a personal weapon and start taking matters into our own hands. Frontier Justice style. Bullets start flying from both ends and health bars start draining as the clips get lower and lower, until eventually the enemy falls before you and that XP bar gets just a little bit fuller. This isn't your run-of-the-mill shooter. This isn't Halo, and it certainly isn't Call of Duty, because when you drain that enemy health bar all the way to 0, you get more experience points than you had before. Your goal is to fill up that bar down there as many times as you can by killing as many things as possible. And you'll need to fill up that bar to get stronger, to get skill points to spend, because without those levels, the vault may as well stay lost. We make our way through the bandits and are rewarded with our very first loot chest. It's nothing crazy, mind, just some low-level pistols with varying stats, but it's like this for a reason. See, every character in the game starts with a unique weapon. The soldier starts with an assault rifle, the siren with an SMG, etc. So in order to not overwhelm the player with a lot at the start of the game, the developers opted to make this specific chest give the player a very small pool of pistols to choose from, what effectively serves as a sidearm to their starting weapon. They're not bad weapons per se, but something that they can use in case they run out of ammo with their starting one. This also could very well be their introduction to seeing stats on weapons for the first time. We can see varying ammo amounts, differences in firepower, accuracy, as well as fire rate. All of the stats that will become more important as the game progresses. This small loot pool primes the player on how loot generation will work as they progress forward. This is their reference point. Now that they know pistols can generate with different stats, they will be able to compare it with their starting weapon. Is it better? Is it worse? Do they like using it more than their starting weapon? All that right there is the brilliant core gameplay loop of Borderlands, all established within the first 5 minutes of gameplay. Kill guy, level up, get loot, compare, equip, and repeat. That's it. And that simplicity is what makes Borderlands so popular from a gameplay perspective. We clear out the bandits as we hobble our way into the town of Fyrestone. Turns out it's not as populated as was once portrayed, but whatever, not my problem. The bandits are dead. I should at least be rewarded for my effort. Thankfully, Claptrap is already ahead of me in that respect and attempts to contact the last remaining inhabitant of Fyrestone.
Attention, citizen of Fyrestone! There is no cause for alarm! This new visitor has resolved the problem!
Well, shoot, I thought I was a goner that time.
We get introduced to how quests and interactables work, pretty basic stuff. And now we are introduced to our first real NPC quest giver, Dr. Zed. Dr. Zed gives us a to-do list of things he needs handled. Clear out the entrance to Fyrestone and fetch him some fuse box or some shit for him to activate his vending machines. A mechanic we'll be engaging with a lot throughout our journey. We buy a shield from the vending machine and learn that they will work just like the guns we find, where every shield we find can be randomly generated. Cool beans. We'll get deeper into itemization later, but the first half hour of the game establishes the framework for the rest of the game. How to play, the people we'll meet, the quests they give, and so on. It lets us get a deeper flavor of the game on offer. We've met Marcus and Claptrap so far, but Dr. Zed is different. Dr. Zed isn't a doctor, something he lets you know right away. He gives off the homely vibe that you need while exploring this desolate wasteland. He has a slight country twang that makes you feel like everything's going to be just fine, despite the fact that we're making small talk over a cadaver. Combine Dr. Zed's inviting and slightly twisted nature with the Fyrestone soundtrack composed by Jesper Kyd, and dude, the vibe is unmatched. Jesper Kyd is a fantastic composer whose work you've definitely heard before and will definitely recognize if you are familiar with Assassin's Creed or Hitman, but his work here on the Borderlands soundtrack, and most specifically the Fyrestone backing track, deserves so much more recognition for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I think the memo Gearbox gave Jesper said something along the lines of, make it Diablo but tribal western, and he delivers exactly to the letter. The big thing that makes Diablo's music so memorable is its use of the 12-string guitar with delay, giving that long sound that you can't get out of your head. Instead of relying on a 12-string to do the work, Jesper lets an acoustic 6-string do the talking with a simple melody, but he still makes sure to rely on the same delay effect that makes Diablo's Tristram theme so memorable. Like we're strolling through a dusty desert town on horseback and see a lone musician playing on a store's front porch. The tune echoes through the town as it bounces from surface to surface. It's calm, it's contemplative, and it serves as a fantastic counterweight to the violence that we've been subjected to thus far. As the song progresses, it builds and builds, adding layers of twangs and single-string plucks that linger in the air with some strong percussion, almost sounding like tribal drum work with an arrangement of bongos and ramshackle drum kits. Combine that with some very light synth work to sell the feeling of atmosphere, and we have the final track titled Welcome to Fyrestone. Look, I'm no musician, so I can only really describe what I feel here, but once you hear the track, it's hard not to feel nostalgic for it, even if you've never heard it before. It delivers the same feeling of Diablo, but still manages to make it scream Borderlands, a vibe all of its own. Jesper's work is fantastic all throughout the game, but it never really holds a candle to the Fyrestone track, much like the Tristram theme in Diablo 1. They're just both so iconic and irreplaceable. Jesper isn't the only composer who worked on Borderlands, mind you. Other names that bless the soundtrack are Ryzon Varner, whose work you might have heard in Red Faction Guerrilla. While he primarily works on sound design, he delivers an unmatched ambience to Pandora with his low synths and atmospheric percussion, along with some crazy techno tracks that help spice up arena combat. Then we have Sasha Dikisia and Chris Velasco, two industry vets with collective work on God of War, Mass Effect, Deus Ex, Quake, Space Marine, and so many other games. Together, they bring a cinematic and orchestral vision to the game during pivotal moments and boss fights. All four of these composers together, despite working separately, are able to come together and make Pandora feel cohesive in its oppression. And that techno sound is used sparingly, aiding the game's sense of low-impact sci-fi. It's a soundtrack that offers more ambience than it does memorable melodies, but it's all in service of giving the player a feeling of Pandora, a vibe. And the overall vibe and flavor of Borderlands is hard to ignore. Let's dig into it a bit. Borderlands made its mark on the gaming space by being this immature, over-the-top, cartoonishly violent game. But this first entry in the franchise feels very tame considering the subject matter. Characters may say some stupid shit that makes your eyes roll to the back of your skull, but it is all delivered with an earnestness that makes it feel very believable. Like, of course people here would talk like this. They don't want to be on this dust ball as much as the next person, but they're still making it work and trying to find the humor in the situation. Some more than others. This is a pretty well-known phenomenon with people enraptured in less than ideal situations. They make light of the situation at hand. It's a wonderful juxtaposition the developers and writers over at Gearbox wanted to make extremely prevalent in the experience. Because back in 2009 when this game was released, you gotta see what was also available at the time. Gears of War released in 2007 with gritty, bloody, cover shooting combat. It was brown and gray and every shade in between, and this had a major impact on the gaming landscape. It seemed like every game to release after that had to be gray and brown, it had to be gritty, it had to tell a serious story of loss and war, it was dull, and Gearbox was on the way to deliver the exact same experience. One that was going to be as gray and as dull as Gears of War before it. On screen now is some footage of the beta for Borderlands. It looks unrecognizable to the one we know today. Put this footage in front of someone who doesn't know any better, and they might call it a first-person Gears of War sequel or even a spin-off to Fallout 3, and that's rough. So they needed to stick out, or else they would end up in the heap of dull gray games that came before. Indistinguishable, unimaginative, and unfun. What they needed was a purple cow. The purple cow is a concept from a marketing book released in 2003 called Purple Cow: Transform Your Business by Being Remarkable. The concept boils down to this. You are driving through the French countryside and see a bunch of cows. It's novel at first. You drive and see more and more cows. But the further you go, the more the cow tends to blend in. It is now commonplace. But then you spot a lone purple cow. Why is there a purple cow? What's it doing there? Why is the cow purple? And now all you can think about is the purple cow. That was Gearbox's design philosophy after a long and hard look at the direction the game was going. So they took a risk after 75% of the game had already been finished. They were going to redesign everything they had made. This means a full revision of everything that had come before and everything new that comes after. All of it needed to be changed. All of it within 1 year. This was a major undertaking by Gearbox management and became a life or death gamble for the studio. This is all discussed in a 2010 GDC talk titled Borderlands and the 11th Hour Art Style Change, or Kids, Don't Try This at Home, which I highly recommend watching as it gives some really cool insight on the work that went into coming up with the art for Borderlands, starting with brown and gritty to colorful and over the top. They took influence from anime, the band Gorillaz, cartoons, and comic books, all helping to create the unique visual language that Gearbox worked to establish. Here's a short snippet of the talk.
One of the things that was really, really interesting for us going into the art style change was when we revealed it first in screenshots and stuff. It was a little bit more mixed than it was when it came out, reaction-wise. Some people were like, "Oh, I don't want to play the game. It's so unrealistic, whatever." But when they start playing it, I think it's one of those things you forget about the black lines. You kind of forget about it. It just becomes a world, and what you don't necessarily see. And we saw this across the board on the Truth Team testing, was that our elements are so separated out, like the foreground elements, midground, background, and all. I mean, in a game with loot just literally explodes out of every orifice of everything that happens. You never get confused by what you're looking at and what you're fighting. Everything is so well defined, and that was sort of like a really nice side effect of the art style change. Is that okay? Now our world, much like a game that Blizzard would build, is very well defined and separated, and that actually just makes the game better.
I left a link in the description below for you to watch later. It's super interesting, and I always love learning about visual development in games. Now, I'll admit, the reason I played Borderlands in the first place was because of the box art. It's striking. A freaky guy wearing a mask with a finger gun next to his head with the cel-shaded comic art style tells you everything you need to know before you even pick up the controller. At the time, it even reminded me of Wind Waker in some weird way, another personal favorite game of mine. So without this 11th hour art change, I don't think I would have ever touched the game to begin with, given I was in my early teens at the time I played it for the first time. It was fun, violent, and colorful. You know, everything a prepubescent boy could want. The pop art style is inseparable from the franchise, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If you got rid of the art style, it's not Borderlands anymore. That was the purple cow they were working to achieve, and they succeeded with flying colors. On the topic of pop art, one thing that is important to mention is that Borderlands and popular culture are tied at the hip. It's a game that takes not only inspiration from other games like Diablo 2, but also movies, TV shows, music, you name it, Borderlands probably has a reference to it somewhere. Pop culture references weren't a huge thing in games around that time. These were things often relegated to hard to find Easter eggs. But Borderlands wanted to let you know that it wears its influences on its sleeve and isn't afraid to show them off, which was refreshing at the time. Now, you might have noticed the oddly stylized elephant in the room with all of this talk of references and art development. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me put a spotlight on it. This is Code Hunters, a short film released in 2006. A cel-shaded, post-apocalyptic space western that follows a small group of vigilantes trying to do something. It's all very ambiguous and gets the viewer asking a lot of questions, but I encourage you to watch it on your own. It's not very long. Now, I don't think I need to say anything about this, but the visual similarities are, well, striking, to say the least. It's clear to anyone with a pair of eyes the short film was a massive influence on the end product of Borderlands and Gearbox in their search for a unique visual identity. And this is a topic that is also addressed in the GDC talk, the influence that Code Hunters had on the visual development of the game. There were talks of the short film's director, Ben Hibben, being brought on by Gearbox to help direct some cutscenes, but nothing ever really came of it. The game's similarity to the short was a huge controversy when the game was released, with talks of Gearbox aping the style completely wholesale. A frustrated Ben Hibben addressed the controversy in 2009 via a Forbes interview, quote, "To be absolutely clear, I have never created or designed anything for Gearbox or Borderlands. Gearbox saw my work and decided to reproduce it, making it their own, without my help or my consent. The hardest part for me when this happened was understanding why they wouldn't ask me directly. We were already talking about doing some work together. It made no sense," end quote. Now, I'm going to make a statement here that might be a little controversial. Gearbox was well within their right to copy the visual stylings of Code Hunters. Now, before you get your panties in a twist, hear me out. Yes, you can see the similarities between the two styles, but that's just what they are. Similarities. There might be callbacks to Code Hunters within Borderlands, but Gearbox put in a lot of effort to make sure that their visual identity for the game was distinct enough from Code Hunters. For one, colors in Borderlands are much more saturated, helping to give the planet of Pandora a much needed shot of pizzazz. Our main characters are stylized, but not so much as to make them look off-putting. And lastly, the world of Pandora may be dusty and dirty, but not nearly as much as the world presented in Code Hunters. Like, let's be real here. This isn't about aping an art style. This screams of the director Ben Hibben being frustrated about not getting the recognition he wanted for pioneering new visuals for animated films in 2006. And I get that. That's entirely reasonable. But being the first person who does something doesn't mean you're the best. It just means you were the first. There's this saying, good artists copy, great artists steal. And that's what Gearbox did. They stole what worked, and they gave it their own twist. Gearbox reached out first to see if he wanted to work with them. Ben said no. Story shut. Better luck next time. But enough talk about that. Let's get back to the game. Shortly after clearing out the workload for Zed, we are introduced to another friendly denizen of Pandora, TK Baha.
You? One more step and it'll be your last. You should have seen the look on your face.
TK Baha is such a fun character that I wish was utilized more. His whole personality encapsulates what makes Borderlands so fun. He's a one-legged amputee wearing a Hawaiian shirt, sitting on his shitty porch attached to his shitty house, and does not hesitate a second to point a loaded double barrel at you for a laugh. Being on Pandora does funny things to people, but TK seems to be taking it in stride and has a good sense of humor about it. But I always feel so bad leaving him after accepting a quest because he seems so lonely.
I only shoot skag. Mostly anyways.
I hate to send you away. Great company and all, but I gotta go take the dump.
TK lets us know about the source of the bandit problem plaguing Fyrestone, a bandit leader called Nine Toes. Take care of him and he will set us up on our journey. We'll do just that. But before we do that, we finally hit level 5 and have access to our unique skill. For Brick, I have access to Punchies mode, which will allow me to put down my guns and put up my fists so I can beat anything in front of me into a fine red mist. All while screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming. It's a lot of fun, but we'll dig into character skills, leveling, and skill trees later on. Let's head back to Fyrestone before we go looking for Nine Toes so we can pick up some side quests at the bounty board.
Still haven't found the vault?
Not yet, little buddy. Not yet. Picking up odd jobs here and there to support the people of Pandora is a big thing pushing the narrative forward. Something contextualized by the voice and visage of the live-action guardian angel in our eyeballs, telling us that gaining the trust of the people of Pandora will be vital in our search for the vault. But that poses a question. I know Zed and TK are giving me quests. I know Claptrap is as well. But who is posting these quests on the Fyrestone bounty board? Most of these quests posted on the bounty board have no name associated with them. So who are they actually posted by? And who's to say that the quests given out by actual named NPCs are given out in good faith? For all I know, these quests could be posted by corpos seeking to gain an upper hand on the competition under the guise of anonymity. Well, in the end, does it matter? We're not here on Pandora to do good. We're here for 3 things: money, a shit ton of loot, and to find the vault. We make our way through the neighboring Skag Gully where Nine Toes' base is located. Along the way, we clear up some quests that we picked up from the bounty board, which is what you will want to do if you want to progress through the game at a reasonable pace. Backtracking becomes a major factor in the game, so it's always best to load up with every quest you can find, handle them as you visit each zone, and always keep moving forward. It's a great way to stay on pace with levels as you progress through the main story, as the game expects you to take all of these quests if you are to stay on top of the level curve. The quests themselves take a lot of influence from another Blizzard property, World of Warcraft. You'll see a lot of similarities between the two. Most of the quests boil down to kill X number of Skag, collect X number of things, pick up X item and place it there. They're all very simple quests that don't outstay their welcome, but the large quantity of them add padding to the game that feels a little unnecessary at times. By now, we've busted our way through Ninetoes' camp, and we get a special introduction just for him.
You woke the wrong dog. Ah, yeah!
And here is where I experienced my first death. But death in Borderlands is a little different from how we normally see it in other shooters. Borderlands introduces you to the second wind system. When downed, you are given a handful of seconds to shoot and hopefully kill a surrounding enemy. When you do, you are revived with some health. It's a really smart system that makes sure that the action is always moving forward. It encourages you to kill as much as you can, to leave no enemy alive in any encounter, and to always return the favor. I managed to take care of Ninetoes' skag companions and revive myself, playing a bit more carefully as I whittled down his health bar until he eventually falls. The bandit problem in Fyrestone should be cooled down now, and we get a sweet new pistol out of it.
Whoa!
A fire repeater, which is both pretty strong and our introduction to the elemental system, but we'll dig into elements later on. By this point, we've learned the stakes, the basics of the loot system, and are let loose into a world of death, weapons, money, and those too dejected to do anything with the hand they've been dealt in life. Smells like an adventure to me. Or maybe that's the rotten carcasses of all those skags I've killed. Who's to say? Now the plot will finally begin in earnest as we begin our search for the vault key, our way into the vault. Angel keeps saying it's real.
You must listen. Who I am is not important. The first thing you must know, the vault is real. People will mislead you. They will try to use you. Do not be swayed in your purpose. The vault is here, and we will find it. This world is full of dangers. Still yourself and go.
And I mean, why would I not believe the lady in my head who calls me Stud Muffin? We return to TK, he thanks us for our help and points us in the direction of a nearby catch-a-ride, owned and operated by the one and only Scooter, our resident mechanic.
Hey, you the one killing all the crap people ask? To catch a ride near Fyrestone is more busted than my mom's car parts. Real appreciate you taking a poke at that. Sister, not my mom. That dog down the character, you know what I'm saying?
He may have a bit of a potty mouth, but with his heart of gold, it's hard not to trust him. So let's catch a ride with him. Now, here is another massive mechanic that is vital to the identity of Borderlands, the vehicles. We'll touch on these more in depth in a few minutes when these become more prevalent, but for now, let's talk about why vehicles play such a vital role on Pandora. And it's as a way to give it a real sense of scale. When we get our first runner, the area around Fyrestone really opens up. We see more of what makes Pandora an interesting locale. The huts, the rock formations, the wind turbines, the flying critters, and even those giant laser cannons that border the area that will instantly atomize you if you progress too far outside of bounds. Nothing says home quite like death lasers forcing you into a confined space. We run across a series of audio diaries for someone named Patricia Tanis, a doll scientist sent to Pandora along with an army of prison labor in an attempt to find the vault.
Day 43 on Pandora. At least I believe it to be the 43rd day I've been here. The moonlight cycles are difficult to get used to. The planet rotation day is over 90 hours long. The people that inhabit this salted dust ball are as ignorant as I've seen in this galaxy. When I attach scientific inquiry to something like the vault, I'm greeted with silly nursery rhymes and slack-jawed soliloquy about a man who knew a man who knew a man. They drift off into a stupor where I half imagine they're drunk or brain damaged and are unaware of my continued presence. If I believed in hell, I would contemplate how it compared to Pandora. Ironically, such a belief would align me with these Neanderthals.
She's an incredibly intelligent person that comes with an ego to match, two things that will unfortunately accelerate her own downfall into insanity during her stay on Pandora. These logs teach us a valuable lesson. Pandora is a planet that does things to you. It fucks with your brain. No matter if you're dumb or smart, strong or weak, it will change you, and mostly for the worst. We'll learn more about her later, but her diaries imply some pretty interesting things about Dahl and the corporations that are using Pandora to fit their ulterior motives. It's no wonder why the suits for these corporations would never go to Pandora themselves. They know the effect it has on people. It's also the perfect place to take out the trash, as shown by Dahl in their mass exodus from their prisons to serve as manual labor in an attempt to find the vault. May as well send all of the undesirables to the universe's biggest dust pile. I mean, come on. A little plausible deniability when it comes to the death of hundreds of thousands of prisoners never hurt anyone's board meeting, did it? There's a subtlety to the world building that I don't think is discussed enough when it comes to Borderlands. It's a game that leaves you with time to think in between objectives. Characters aren't always on your echo comms telling you what to think. There isn't someone trying to crack a terrible joke every few seconds. It lets you simmer in the silence, and that silence makes what little writing is in the game much more effective. I'm sure this is probably a result of budget, but in this instance, I think it benefits the overall experience. Sometimes less is more, and that holds very true about the writing and world building of Borderlands.
Day 119. I sat in the shower in tears for just under an hour. This is interesting, considering we haven't had water for days. I equate my ever-decreasing sanity with that of the population of my dig site. With the investigation of the symbols and glowing patterns at the site, we finally unearthed arguably certifiable proof of the existence of alien life having been here on Pandora. But this celebration was lonely, as I only have 2 colleagues left.
Thanks to the help we provided Dr. Zed, he hooks us up with an informant who points us in the direction of the first vault key. Our informant says it's under the possession of another bandit leader called Sledge. He has commandeered an abandoned Doll steel mill and is using it as his base of operations. Finally, our first real challenge. Well, there's no time to waste, let's make it there. Well, actually, real quick, we need to stop by another one of these bases to grab a key to get into the steel mill. Let's just do that real quick. Oh shit, hey Claptrap. Oh man, what happened to you, man? You're all fucked up. Let's get you the repair kit real quick and boom, you're all set. Oh my god. Hey, what is this? Oh man, you're giving me an inventory expansion? That's awfully pog champion of you. Now I don't need to make as many stops at the vending machines to sell the shit I picked up. Speaking of vending machines, let's talk about them for a second. The entry point to every zone in the game provides the player with vending machines that give them access to a rotating inventory of randomly generated loot. The inventory rotates every 20 minutes of real-world time. You'll find that you'll rely on vending machines quite often during your journey across Pandora, all thanks to their pretty generous assortment of items inside. Vendors are nothing new to the action RPG genre, of course, but it gets you asking the question, why vending machines? Why not human NPCs you can talk to in order to buy stock? The answer is quite simple, and it's all part of the thematic flavor that Borderlands is attempting to establish. It wants you to feel like you're in a capitalist hellscape only populated by uncaring machinery that will sell you weapons of mass devastation. And what better way to do that than by having it spit out cold company mottos at you every time you walk up to one? It's a beautiful irony. A machine that we commonly associate with food and beverages, things we need to survive, instead providing weaponry as a means of protection in a world where everything is out to kill you. So, in a way, still things we need to survive. See, it's like poetry, they rhyme. We kill some big guy, pick up the keys to the steel mill, and head out when we receive a transmission from someone calling themselves Commandant Steel.
It's come to our attention that you've been at war with elements of the local population, and you've now been contracted to assassinate one of their leaders. This type of unsanctioned mercenary activity undermines the stability of the region. You have been warned.
Yeah, whatever, I don't fucking care, blah. We make it to the steel mill and get a deeper understanding of what's been happening on Pandora before we got here, all being told through the visuals of the mill itself. Clearly a lot of money and infrastructure went into this place, which gets me thinking about the economy of Pandora, something I believe is very interesting and very worthy of discussion, not just from a gameplay point of view, but a narrative one. While the steel mill effectively works as our first traditional dungeon in a sense, the narrative implications it holds are much more interesting. Corporations came to Pandora in search of the vault, in search of whatever could be inside of it. So they invested billions in an effort to find it. Whatever could be inside, certainly it would be worth the investment. So factories were established. Infrastructure was brought to Pandora in the form of off-world trading networks. And now there are methods that lead to the digital construction of physical objects across a digital ecosystem called the EchoNet. I'm talking guns, I'm talking cars, I'm talking your own dead body. Nothing was off the table. The endless amounts of currency that was invested into Pandora created a brand new economy. An economy that took the form of a literal arms race. In search of potentially infinite wealth, these corpos put in the best method of defense: killing the competition. Not in a metaphorical sense, I'm talking literally. These guys will just straight up kill you if you get to the vault first. They are not fucking around. So these corporations came onto Pandora with every tool they would need to destroy whoever tried to get to the vault before them. Only for them all to give up on the vault years later, but in doing so, they left infrastructure, a place for people to live and work, so maybe it's not all bad. Oh shit, right, yeah, there's also one small problem. The prisoner population that Dahl brought in? Oh, yeah, that one. What kind of situation do we get when we put a hostile environment, hundreds of thousands of prisoners, untold amounts of money, guns, and infrastructure all into a mixing pot and leave it to simmer for a few years? Well, let's not focus on that. Let's just leave it be. That problem will settle itself out. That problem did not settle itself out. Well, I think in time, it certainly did. Pandora got a reputation for itself not only because of the vault, but because of how much money was pumped into the planet. You had to fight to get it. But if you did, you were rewarded handsomely. Money on Pandora is rivaled only by the amount of sand below your feet. There is so much of it, but that also means that it's, well, worthless to the average person. I mean, what are you going to buy with it? Guns? Ammo? A shield to protect yourself from said guns and ammo? Why buy any of those things when there are literal millions of them just lining the ground? Money in the Borderlands universe feels pointless, and that all aids in the themes at play in the setting. While money on Pandora might be useless to the bandits and the skag and the few remaining sane people that live on this shitty dust ball, it's definitely not useless to you, the player. You are going to need that money to achieve your objective in finding the vault as the challenge begins to ramp up. You'll be buying more and more things from vending machines because not only is money used for buying things at vending machines, it also serves as your own insurance fee for when you do inevitably die and are forced to be revived by the new use stations. It plays a vital role in getting you to the vault. So we finally make our way to Sledge, and this dude is yoked up. All that skag meat they've been eating down here must be packed with steroids, but he didn't account for me playing brick in my absolutely insane punchies game. Let's play punchies to see who gets the vault key. Fine! Looks like I get the vault key. One piece of the vault key down. Let's freaking go. Ah, fuck, hang on. I'm getting a call. Oh my god, it's Commandant Steele again.
This is Commandant Steele of the Atlas Corporation, Crimson Lance D Company, 3rd Starborn Brigade. I have just been informed that you have arrived on Pandora in search of the vault, and within minutes have started killing the locals and causing a disturbance. This planet is under the authority of the Atlas Corporation, and any Iridian artifacts found here are Atlas property. Possession of such property carries a stiff penalty. I invite you to turn yourself in at once to the nearest Lance outpost and surrender any information or artifacts in your possession.
Okay, who the fuck is the Crimson Raiders, dude? I've never heard of them. Don't care, let's keep it schmoving. With Sledge dead, Zed points us in the direction of New Haven, a supposed bastion of civilization, which I highly doubt it is, but it's our only shot if we're going to find the rest of the vault keys. There are a few zones in between New Haven and Fyrestone, letting us get some levels and new loot, and also unlocking the fast travel system for the game, letting us get wherever we want with ease. The fast travel system is great, no notes. For a game as large as this, it helps cut down backtracking pretty substantially. And in some of these larger zones, we have a better chance to play around with vehicles and actually experience some car-to-car combat. What's a wasteland without some Mad Max vibes, right? Well, okay, there's this small problem. Vehicles in Borderlands they are not good, like at all. Let's dig into it. Borderlands only lets you choose from one vehicle in the base game, the Runner, a souped-up buggy that can either come with a mounted machine gun or rocket launcher that can be controlled by a second player. The actual driving mechanic is implemented almost one-to-one when compared to Halo, and you can see some of the design DNA for the Warthog in here, which makes sense considering Gearbox handled Halo Combat Evolved's original PC port. It's a nice touch. All the player needs to do is hold forward on the control stick and the runner will drive in a straight line based on the direction of the camera. It never strays from the path that you set. It's point and go, meaning if you have to turn, you are required to rotate your camera. The vehicle control aspect itself isn't an issue. It's simple enough to pick up and play, which is great when implemented into a group setting where anyone could be driving. That's not the problem. The problem lies in two other aspects: vehicular combat, and the absolutely funky physics at play. Vehicular combat sucks. There's no other way to put it. But why does it suck exactly? It's actually not very complex to explain, thankfully, but that's also part of the underlying issue. Vehicles in Borderlands lack what makes the rest of the game so special, meaning the mechanics that apply to weapon generation do not apply to vehicles. You have one type of car, and that's it. Better get used to it, and combat in the vehicles can be boiled down to two methods: running over things at full speed so they become a tastefully chunky paint job across your hood, or unleashing lead at excessive volumes into the enemy from your choice of mounted weapon. Running over small critters and bandits can be enjoyable and is a decent source of passive XP generation as you drive from objective to objective. But the same can't be said about the mounted weaponry you have at your disposal behind the wheel. Both are decent tools, but that's it. They're not good, they're not bad, they're just decent. Upon closer inspection, the machine gun provides consistent damage and the rocket launcher is stronger in bursts. And really, the only reason you would use them is because they are the only thing you have when on your vehicle. I think it would be more enjoyable to take out your current weaponry and hold it out of the sides of the car and shoot that way, almost like a drive-by. That would at least fix the issues of cars being so one note. Another thing that bugs me is that I don't think using the weapons would be so bad while driving if I could independently steer and shoot at the same time. Let's take a look at how Halo handles this. In Halo, this is never really an issue. When you take over a Warthog, you always have a Marine or a friendly NPC on the turret helping you kill stuff. No such thing exists in Borderlands. It's you on your lonesome unless you have another player. So if you want to fight efficiently while driving, you need to park to aim, drive straight towards your target while shooting, or have to rely on another player so you can drive and they can shoot. It can be fun to play with another player in your back seat. Everything is better with a friend after all. But if the vehicle gets destroyed, it just makes the inevitable run back to the nearest catch-a-ride inconvenient for two people as opposed to one. So I would generally recommend the second player digistruct their own vehicle and fight on their own. Vehicles have deeper problems that I will tackle later when we discuss the DLC, so put a pin in this for now. But suffice to say, vehicles are not great. But we're done with this zone, let's finally make our way to New Haven. New Haven is our pseudo-hub for the rest of the game. We'll be making returns here from time to time, picking up new quests, buying items, and well, that's about it. There's not really anything here that sets New Haven apart from any other zone in the game, other than it has NPCs that spit out single lines of dialogue. It has vending machines, but we have access to vending machines in literally every other zone. In the end, it kind of exists for a place to store plot-relevant NPCs. We meet up with Scooter, who's just as dashing in person as he is over the catch-a-ride intercom.
Come on in. I ain't gonna buy it, probably.
We also meet up with Helena Pierce, the administrator of New Haven. Quite the different personality from those we've encountered thus far. She's stern, but polite. It seems like Pandora hasn't had the same effect on her that it's had on everyone else. We help get the town of New Haven back up and running for her, and in return, she points us in the direction of one Patricia Tanis, the same doll scientist from earlier. She will be our primary contact in the hunt for the vault key going forward. While we make our way through the Rust Commons to get to her, let's take a moment to finally talk about the combat of Borderlands. Releasing in 2009, you would think that maybe Borderlands doesn't hold up as well today. Often when we as a community look back at the games that serve as major influences for today's games, there are bits and pieces of them that don't hold up in some respects. It's definitely true when examining Borderlands with a more critical lens here. Navigation is filled with an absurd amount of invisible walls that make the world of Pandora feel very limited, as if the devs knew that people would try to traverse the massive rock piles of Pandora, but said, we don't have time to QA all of this, so put up a wall there and call it good. In addition to that, on-foot navigation has some really bad collision mesh work that plagues the whole game. It's a problem that is only exaggerated when you are in a vehicle because of how faster speeds interact with the collision system. A car going 100 kilometers per hour can hit a lifted edge of something and come to a complete stop with the swimpiest little tink you've ever heard. It's not very good, but it's pretty funny. So not only is walking around the environment an issue thanks to a plethora of bad geometry and invisible walls that block navigation, but add a fast vehicle to the mix and shit just gets weird really fast. Like, why the hell does this thing go flying when I hit it with a limp-wristed melee attack, but come to a complete dead stop when I even look at a piece of raised rock? But I can forgive all of this because of how good the combat in the game feels. even 16 years later. The gunplay in Borderlands works really, really well, and I think a lot of that can be chalked up to Gearbox's history with not only developing Half-Life expansions early in their conception, but also thanks to their work on the Brothers in Arms series. The first Brothers in Arms title, Road to Hill 30, released in 2005, well after the release of Half-Life 1, and their work on the expansions for those games. Brothers in Arms was made in part to capitalize on the rise of World War II shooters around the time. And while I've never played any of these games myself, they were all received very well critically and commercially, enough to keep Gearbox up and running. Their knack for creating engaging first-person shooters with unique mechanics is what makes Gearbox so good at making shooters, and that applies to Borderlands as well. Guns in Borderlands feel fantastic to fire right from the get-go, from pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, SMGs, snipers, revolvers, and even rocket launchers. Every weapon in the game has a good amount of punch to them. Shooting at enemies feels impactful as they stagger and flinch as bullets ram straight into their brain sockets. Seeing those health bars whittle down as you slam clip after clip into countless enemies never gets old, no matter what character you're playing as. And that is a testament to how fantastic the fundamentals of the game are. They put their money where it mattered, the gunplay. And that's what makes Borderlands stick out as much as it does from its contemporaries. Because without it, getting a new gun wouldn't be as exciting as it is. Picking up a new gun and comparing it to what I had before, with its different fire rate and accuracy and power, is a feeling few games are able to replicate at such a wide scale. And the fact that they were able to replicate this feeling across multiple weapon types, making each weapon type viable in their own way, should be studied more in depth. This design work is a testament to Gearbox's reverence for the shooter genre. They ensured that every weapon type got the same amount of tender love and care as the last. It's truly impressive that even on their first try, Gearbox was able to mostly nail great feeling randomly generated weapons. Mostly. Some guns might sound like pea shooters and lack a lot of weight from an animation and sound department, and those factors could conflict with the damage they do, creating a sort of dissonance when you fire a weapon. Say for instance, I find a repeater, a fast-firing pistol. Every time I fire from it, it sounds like it's shooting darts out of a blowgun. It's whistly and weak sounding, but it could also be my highest power weapon at the moment. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm sure with some extra Foley work, they could have easily bumped up the sound for this weapon type to make it a bit punchier. That small change would make all of the difference in the world. However, I'm willing to give them a pass on this because it's difficult to curate a perfect experience for every single 7-point-whatever million guns in this game. And that's the point. Not every gun is going to feel amazing when you fire it. Some guns are just straight up better than others. We'll get into that later as we discuss loot generation as well as weapon variety, but it bears repeating. Gearbox did an amazing job at making sure gunplay in the game feels great. It still holds up all of these years later. They took all of their strongest assets as a company and placed it into a framework that would allow them to experiment. Back to Tannis, we finally made it to her dig site, and we encounter some strange-looking artifacts lining the area. They appear in stark contrast to the brown rocks and dirt below our feet. They're almost a sheer white. They're beautiful and clean, almost otherworldly. These artifacts were clearly put together by skilled craftsmen, but who were these craftsmen? She lets us know about the vault key and who made it. Those white artifacts we found earlier and the vault key, those were all made by an ancient alien race known as Iridians. They've long since disappeared from Pandora, but their work is still very much visible. So they made the vault. They made all of this architecture. Very interesting to learn, but I'm a vault hunter. I don't care about that. All I care about is finding it. Tannis lets us know that through her research, she was able to uncover that the vault is only able to be opened once every 200 years. Why 200 years? No one knows for certain, not even her. It's alien technology, they just do stuff that way, I guess. The last thing she tells us is that there are 3 more pieces of the vault key left, with our next poor sap of a target named Crom holding it deep within a canyon. Okay, let's go. We're no longer in the opening areas of the game, and things are starting to heat up. So let's talk about some of the enemies we're encountering along the way to Crom's Canyon. Enemies in Borderlands, for a freshman effort, are pretty good, I think. We have a nice variety of both human and alien enemies to fight along the journey to the vault, but the game starts us out pretty small. We take care of some lowly bandits armed with weak-ass pistols and make our way up to fighting skags right outside of Fyrestone. They're feisty little critters, but not very scary to fight. As we gain levels and start filling out our skill tree, enemy amount and variety starts to shoot up a bit. What I do appreciate is how every enemy archetype feels distinct enough in combat so that it doesn't become tedious throughout a playthrough. Bandits themselves come in various forms. We have the Raider, a standard gun-wielding ranged attacker who tosses grenades, the Psycho, a low-health melee attacker who will charge you no matter the circumstance, the Bruiser, a slow-walking and chunky shooter that can sustain longer fights, and the poorly named Midget, a low-health attacker that can either be a charging Psycho or a shotgun variant. There are several other subtypes of these bandits, who are minor changes of their existing counterparts like the Burning Psycho, but you get the idea. With these subtypes of the bandit archetype, we can see a great amount of gameplay variety that they can cultivate alone. Psychos encourage close combat fighting with the use of shotguns or high-powered revolvers that can deal a lot of damage quickly. Midgets, using their small stature, are able to get to you much quicker than a normal bandit and can find ways through your defense, so it's better to reposition. Raiders aren't anything to sneeze at either. Their near constant barrage of bullets from a distance can get annoying in groups, and they love to reposition in the middle of combat to keep you guessing. Not to mention their use of cover is actually pretty good, requiring you to use grenades or get higher vantage points to take them down. Bandits are also an enemy type that fight in large groups, but with their relatively low health and small shields, some well-timed grenades or explosives can clear out a pack easily. And that's something you will want to do because they can overwhelm you quickly with a focused onslaught of both melee and ranged attacks. Power in numbers is their strategy, and it can be a fearsome one on Pandora. The same principles of having variance in enemy design can be seen in other enemies on Pandora, including the Skag, the Flying Rack, the Spider Ants, and a handful of other enemy archetypes. But it's clear to see that the majority of work went into the humanoid enemies. They are consistently the most engaging to fight because of the variety of enemy AI on offer. I think we can pin that down to them reusing a lot of systems from prior games. The team at Gearbox mentioned in their GDC talk that they had to reuse systems from their body of work in order to meet deadlines. So why not use all of the human AI from Brothers in Arms, for instance? Just makes sense. Reduce, reuse, recycle. It's the game dev dream. But when it comes to the native alien races on Pandora, the combat equation gets a little bit muddied. The killer creatures of Pandora all seem to have a fairly basic enemy AI flow, meaning target the player, charge at them, release a potential ranged attack if they have one, then rinse and repeat until either you or them die a gruesome death. It can be engaging for the first couple of bouts, but when you learn to see the cues for these attack patterns, you end up kiting and jumping circles around the fools while pumping bullets into their weak spots. Thankfully, it feels good to even kill the dumb enemies, so they have that going for them. Pumping bullets into crit spots like heads or thoraxes consistently feels great because of how they can absolutely obliterate health bars. But now that we're about halfway through the game, we've seen just about everything it has to offer in terms of unique enemies to combat. But that's not including the badass variants of every enemy. This game's narratively cheesy take on the elites of Diablo. These are powered up versions of base enemies that can come with elemental ailments that can damage you in more efficient ways than usual. Badasses can be enjoyable to fight. They provide unique challenges in certain aspects, but more often than not, it just means they're a normal enemy with higher health. Which brings us to another point worth mentioning, and it's probably the biggest slight I have for the game at this point. While the gunplay and combat in Borderlands feels good, it is entirely dependent on the actual numbers in order to deliver a positive and enjoyable action RPG experience. When I play Diablo, I want to carve through hundreds of thousands of demons using a variety of skills. This is all part of the power fantasy that the game wants to elicit. Now, here's the thing. Diablo is a top-down isometric game. You can see the entire battlefield all at once. You know where damage is coming from, and having high enemy visibility means more enemies can be seen on screen at once. Does that ARPG power fantasy transfer over to Borderlands? Well, kind of. And a lot of that has to do with mental load, or in other words, the amount of information a person can process at any given moment. Let's use Diablo 4 as an example. When I'm playing Diablo, my mental load is fairly low. I have a marker always telling me where to go as I play, and with the game all taking place on a singular flat playing field, I don't need to think about navigation or roadblocks. So now my main focus while playing is making sure I can keep track of spells, my cooldowns, and how much mana I have to cast said spells. Now the rest of my mental load can go towards math, checking and comparing loot, making sure my skills are allocated how I need them to do the most damage, contemplating where to spend my nodes on the Paragon board. The act of playing the game itself is minimal, almost like I'm an overpowered chainsaw running on autopilot while summoning the occasional ball of lightning. Borderlands can't really function the same way because of its different perspective. Because in Borderlands, I'm not viewing the whole battlefield anymore. All I have as a player is a narrow field of view where bullets are allowed to sling from. So now I have to keep track of where bullets are coming from, who's dealing the most damage to me, who's the biggest threat at this current moment. Now take all of that and more and add a Z-axis. It's not just click, 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 click anymore. Now it's move, shoot, jump, aim, use ability, swap weapon, reload, and on and on and on. You only have one ability per character. So needless to say, it gets a little complicated. Our mental load starts to fill up in these combat equations, meaning it's a lot more complicated than Diablo is. Complicated in terms of moment-to-moment gameplay. So what are some ways Gearbox reduces that mental load on the player? Well, you only have one ability per character in Borderlands. And instead of spamming spells, you have to spam bullets. So your bullets are effectively your mana pool. However, bullets don't regenerate like mana does. So now the power fantasy isn't limited to how fast you can kill a mountain of enemies with a regenerating source. Now it's how many enemies can you kill with a limited resource. See where the problems start to arise? There are elements of a power fantasy still here. You do end up killing lots of bandits and beasts while on Pandora. And the second wind system ensures that even if you do lose all of your health in battle, that doesn't mean you're out of the fight. But it doesn't quite deliver the same experience as a traditional ARPG. And that's expected. You cannot directly transfer over a genre that was designed entirely around an isometric perspective and make it first person. It's just not possible. Concessions needed to be made, and I think Gearbox did a fantastic job considering the circumstances. They lowered the complexity in some areas and shifted them to others that fit the shooter genre much better. So we made it to Crom, and we killed him dead pretty much instantly. Kind of a nothing burger boss fight, really. The boss, in finger quotes, was more of a stationary turret at the top of the canyon with a lot of ads that spawned as we made our way up. It's somewhat disappointing because I love the idea of this boss arena. Crom sits towards the top of the canyon on his turret while he's consistently shooting down bullets at you from above. It has the making of a really engaging arena. You can run up, you can hide behind cover, throw in a few pot shots to lower him, and maybe he comes off of the turret eventually. But the whole fight is trivialized when you find out you can just shoot him from the base of the canyon and kill him there. Okay, Borderlands is of course an action RPG like we've discussed. It has leveling, it has abilities to use to aid your murder rampage, and most importantly, it has math. Look, I know we all hate math, but when it comes to action RPGs, their fun factor can often be sourced back to the math that underpins the whole experience. And the math in Borderlands is, I will say, decent most of the time. But when we get further into the experience, around level 30 plus, we can start to see some issues with balancing. The same could be said for any other action RPG, really. If you have ever made it to the end game for games like Diablo or Path of Exile, you will begin to notice how the math underneath the game can start to affect the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. So where am I going with this tangent? Well, when I say that the math that runs Borderlands is decent most of the time, that does not apply to the bosses. Bosses in the game are balanced like normal enemies. When you think boss, you're thinking a dude with a larger than average health pool, unique moves, a unique look, and overall just something memorable. That's not really the case here. Bosses in Borderlands usually come in one shape, a bandit. That has applied to Nine Toes, to Crom, and Sledge to a certain extent. And all of these enemies fight almost exactly like every basic bandit enemy we've come across thus far, with health to match. It's funnier when you consider that badass enemies that you run into have health pools that are incredibly overinflated, even in areas where you feel like you're properly leveled. In most instances during my playthrough, it feels like even the most run-of-the-mill bandit can be more of a threat than some of the bosses we've seen since we've started our journey on Pandora. To me, that feels off. There's no reason bandit number 7294 should be stronger than this plot important baddie that I'm working towards. Oh well, we have another piece of the vault key. That's 2 of 4. We bring it back to Tannis and she points our way to the Trash Cove. But first we need to deal with this whole rigmarole surrounding the Cobb family. See, Taylor Cobb has access to the Trash Cove, but won't give it to us. Lately, he's been a bit peeved because his brother Janus kicked him out of his own town called, Janus Town. So he hires us to go kill Janus. So we'll do that. In the meantime, now that we have a couple vault key pieces under our belt, let's discuss the Vault Hunters in question. Our Vault Hunters will be our bread and butter throughout our journey on Pandora. We'll get to level them, see them get stronger, and pump points into their 3 unique skill trees, with each character bringing something different to the table. Starting with Mordecai, he's the resident sniper of the bunch. His special ability lets him summon his pet bird, Bloodwing, a winged homing missile that can deal an absurd amount of burst damage to enemies within a close proximity to each other. Mordecai's kit involves the heavy use of snipers and assassination, allowing for some insane damage potential through the exploitation of critical hits. With the right skills, he even has a chance to ignore enemy shields altogether, allowing for fast and frequent executions. And sniping isn't all he can do. He also comes equipped with a gunslinger playstyle that lets him kill fast and hard with revolvers, a playstyle built with health regeneration and faster shooting speed. That being said, he's a character you'll want to play from a distance because of his low health pool. He's a scrawny mofo, so get moving, get to cover, and hit those headshots. Brick, my choice for this playthrough, is a beefstick of a man. His kit boils down to get in the thick of it, punch shit, and survive all of it. He allows for a more explosive damage-oriented playstyle with a heavy use of rocket launchers, and even has the potential to regenerate rocket ammo for free. You also want to practice liberal use of shotguns while you're up close and personal after coming down from punchies mode. His skills can make him tankier with a lot of on-kill skills, allowing him to regen health, deal more damage, or get shield back quicker. And when you pump points into the prize fighter ability, you have a chance to generate money with every punch you land while in punchies mode, leaving you with a heavier wallet after every use. It's a lot of fun. Roland is our generic soldier of the bunch, but he has some backstory visible on his person. Some keen glances show him rocking some Crimson Lance armor, and while we don't know much about the Crimson Lance at this point, it opens up some interesting theorizing. Did he used to work with them? Did he pillage the armor off of a dead Crimson Lance corpse? Either way, he's got a vibe that I fuck with. What sets Roland apart is his use of the Scorpio turret, a piece of Crimson Lance technology that can solve just about any problem you might have. Need health? Stand nearby and it will heal you. Running low on ammo? It will make some for you and load it into your pockets, all while it continuously shoots shit at the same time. What a fabulous little piece of tech this is. Roland is a character you'll want to play at mid-range with his reliance on assault rifles. He can use just about anything, but he tends to go through ammo quickly, so the Scorpio turret helps keep his assault rifle pouch constantly filled up. He makes a great addition to any group of Vault Hunters thanks to his versatility. And now we have Lilith, our 4th and final character, who is arguably the most intriguing of the bunch. Lilith is a siren, a person who has been bestowed otherworldly powers by means and reasons outside of her understanding. Only 6 women can become sirens in the known universe at a time, so when one dies, that power is passed on to someone else, and that power can manifest differently from person to person. Sirens are always identified by their very distinctive tattoos that often illuminate when activating their powers. As a siren, Lilith has the ability to phase walk, to turn invisible and move quickly through an alternative plane of reality. Upon returning to the real world, she will release a large blast of damage to all nearby enemies. Ideally, you will want to play Lilith as a close range to mid-range combatant who relies heavily on SMGs and elemental weapons. She will bob and weave through combat through the use of her phase walk, applying elemental ailments to anyone foolish enough to come into contact with her. And in the late game, her kit really shines because of the insane amount of elemental damage she's capable of. All of the Vault Hunters here feel great to use and are unique enough to justify their existence. However, it's not all good. If you're familiar with ARPGs, you're probably familiar with builds. It's a huge part of what makes these games so entertaining and so replayable. Sadly, Borderlands doesn't really offer anything in that sense. The skills on offer aren't strong enough to have a large impact on overall gameplay because many of them utilize a percentage-based design, meaning for every shot you shoot or every melee you hit or what have you, they have a chance to activate. They lack consistency, making them overall less reliable. It's a design choice that leads some abilities to just be better than others as well. But now a different issue arises. A maxed out character will have a total of 68 skill points available to them, assuming they complete everything the game has to offer, meaning they can get enough skill points into all 3 trees available to reach the capstone ability sitting at the bottom of each one, and still have enough points to spend however they want. To me, there is no trade-off being made here. 68 skill points is far, far too many on offer for how few skills there are. It has the adverse effect of every character turning into a jack of all trades when it's more entertaining for them to focus on a specific build or playstyle. Again, there are no real builds on offer here because skills are not strong enough to push the player into any real direction. A lot of this has to do with how in Borderlands, every character only has one ability at their disposal. It leads the player to focus on a specific playstyle for the majority of their playthrough instead of experimenting with it in unique ways, allowing them to find their own truly unique gameplay style. So Brick will always be the close range fighter using his basic punches, Mordecai will always use Bloodwing to deal burst damage, and so on. The designers at Gearbox attempted to implement a sort of band-aid solution to builds through the use of the class mod item, a randomly generated box that you can equip that will apply a few bonus levels to certain trees in an attempt to emphasize a specific playstyle. Sadly, they are also too plain and generalized to really push a specific role. Roland, for instance, has class mods that can provide ammo regeneration for the team, or perhaps extra shield regeneration. Brick, on the other hand, can equip a mod that lets his team regenerate health at a slow percentage, and it puts a few extra points into his tank tree to increase his survivability. These are just a few examples. There are a lot of class mods in the game for every character, but the problem is that these mods feel more like a tiny passive bonus than they do gameplay altering items. It has the result of every class mod not really providing anything of substance. They all feel very homogeneous. It's not a terribly bad thing when viewed from a distance because they can be used to fill a gap in your kit somewhere, but I'm not super excited when I see a new one. So we finished running around for Taylor Cobb and killed his brother. Turns out he just wanted the town for himself so he could just rename it to Taylortown. Now he wants to kill us. See where we're going with this? It's pretty egregious gameplay padding, but it does a pretty good job of showing how stupid most of the conflict on Pandora can be. We kill Taylor Cobb and finally get access to the Trash Cove, where the third and final piece of the vault is located. The Trash Cove is very small, but it's also the host of probably the most interesting main boss the game has to offer, the Rack Hive. The Rack Hive is an anomaly. For one, it's not a bandit leader. It's a literal force of nature, a giant beast that burrows under the sand that plays host to the rack. It's a living, breathing organism that serves a symbiotic purpose to a subset of creatures on Pandora. And it makes me think, is it sentient? Does it know it has all of these creatures living in its back? Is he chill with that? None of that really matters to the overall equation because it has to die like everything else, but shit is so cool. It's not a very challenging boss, but at least it's more interesting than a turret or a bandit reskin. By making use of its massive size, it's able to produce shockwaves on the ground that can damage and push you back in the arena if you don't time your jumps correctly, all while firing off rack to poke at you every now and then. The weak spots take the form of eyes that you need to shoot out on both sides of its head until it eventually perishes. It's a fun challenge of shooting the low health rack as they appear, popping eyes one by one, and maintaining jump timings and distance from the beast until it topples over. Good boss design. No notes. We kill it and pick up the third piece of the vault key that the Rack Hive was guarding in a nearby cave. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. At this point in the game, elemental weapons really start to showcase their utility in the combat equation, which also makes it the perfect time to talk about them. In more traditional ARPGs like Diablo, they are something that requires a lot of consideration, but mostly when it comes to defending yourself against them. You have to juggle your resistances to ensure your survival against fire, electricity, shadow, and whatever other flavor of damage the game has. Borderlands has similar factors at play, but their implementation is much less static. Instead of managing different percentages for your own survival, elements affect your character in different ways. Fire burns through flesh, dealing more damage to red portions of health bars. Electricity shorts the fuses on your shield, draining them faster than any other type of damage. Corrosive damage slowly chips away at enemy health, eats through enemy armor, and is able to jump from enemy to enemy like an infection. Fire, shock, and corrosive all deal damage over time, which makes the last element, explosive, a bit of an outlier. Explosive works just like normal bullets, but they have a chance to deal a burst, or explosion, of damage when a bullet impacts its target. I personally prefer this implementation of elemental damage when compared to other ARPGs. It's a much more involved system that will encourage you to use different weaponry for different situations, really making use of those 4 weapon slots at your disposal. And loot is where the real depth of the experience comes in. Not from the classes or the leveling, but the loot. Let's finally dig into it while we make our way back to Tannis and pass off this key piece. I think the designers knew that characters being so limited in moveset and abilities had to lead to more unique methods of play in other categories, which brings us to the main appeal of Borderlands, the thing that arguably sets it apart from everything else on the market at the time: the loot. Even today, there is no shooter that can compare to the loot game that Borderlands has cultivated. I remember when Destiny first came out in 2014, which was claiming to be another major entry in the looter shooter genre, and I couldn't have been more disappointed when I played it. Disappointed because a game made by a massive team with near unlimited resources and some of the best minds in the industry at the time managed to have a less compelling loot system than a game that was released 5 years prior. With hindsight, I can see that Bungie were going more for a World of Warcraft approach to looting and gearing, but it still lacks the impact that Borderlands brings. Loot in Borderlands is why you play. It's the thing that makes the series so replayable. The freshman entry by Gearbox, of course, takes its inspiration from Diablo 2 in how loot is generated. And if you're going to take inspiration, it may as well be from the king. Unlike your traditional ARPG, you don't need to worry about armor pieces or sets. It's all very simplified to cater to the console audience. The only thing we need to worry about are guns, shields, and grenades, and more guns. In Borderlands, we have 4 weapon slots at our disposal depending on the situation. Now, why is this? It's because we have such a wide variety of weapon types at our disposal. We have pistols, assault rifles, SMGs, revolvers, snipers, rocket launchers, and shotguns to choose from, with all of them having their own independent ammo pools. The 4 slots you have encourage you to specialize in at least 4 weapon types as opposed to just 1 or 2. Because if we do just 1 or 2 weapon types, we run the risk of running out of ammo for those 2 weapon types faster. Weapons come in all shapes and sizes, but what gives it a narrative and gameplay flavor is how these guns came into the picture. Remember when we talked about all the corpos coming to Pandora and waging a literal arms race as they search for the vault? Well, now we can see the actual fruit of their labor. Every corporation that made their way onto Pandora is visually represented here in the form of the weapons they brought. Every corporation has their own selections of weapons, shields, grenades, and class mods for us to loot, and all of them come with different pieces that determine their stats, look, and rarity. It's a deeply complex and nuanced system, and as a result, it makes it difficult to give a concise explanation. I know this is already a long video, but not giving the loot the moment it needs to shine would feel like a massive disservice to the work Gearbox put into the system. This is literally their magnum opus as a studio. So let's give it the time it deserves by first talking about the manufacturers that helped make Pandora the violent, bloody wasteland we know it as today. It all starts with Atlas, the company who owns the Crimson Lance and is the company actively pouring the most money into the search for the vault at the moment. Their weapons are consistently in the middle of the road, always reliable with their ammo capacity and damage potential. It's always fun to shoot an Atlas, especially their assault rifles and repeater pistols. Next up is Dahl. Dahl makes surprisingly sturdy weaponry, great at absorbing heavy shots and dealing massive damage, but their accuracy technology leaves a lot to be desired. So if you're up for some close combat, you might want to check out their shotguns, SMGs, or revolvers. Hyperion, the creators of the new U Station and our best buddy Claptrap, make highly accurate weapons with very low recoil. Repeated fire with consistency is their #1 priority, but it's a mantra that comes at the cost of other stats you might prefer. If you want to hit your target and from a distance, this might be your choice. They make fantastic snipers, repeaters, and rifles. Jacobs is a brand that is instantly recognizable in the Borderlands universe thanks to their simple, homemade approach to firearms. They're all made with wood and always pack a serious punch at the cost of ammo capacity and reload speed. Their motto states, "If it took more than 1 shot, then you weren't using a Jacobs." If that's not a mission statement, I don't know what is. You can come to them for crazy strong shotguns, revolvers, snipers, and nothing else. It's quality over quantity for this manufacturer. If you need an elemental weapon to cover your bases in combat, then Maliwan is your #1 choice. Maliwan only produces elemental weapons, but they also can provide increased accuracy and reload speed to ensure that you keep getting elemental procs during combat. You'll find yourself relying on Maliwan weapons much more later in the game thanks to their ability to handle specific types of enemies. So make sure to always keep an active weapon slot open for one of these bad boys. You'll fall in love with their frequent firing rocket launchers, repeaters, and assault shotguns. S&S munitions is great if you love shooting a lot. And what good is a weapon that doesn't fire a lot of bullets? S&S munitions weapons can hold an insane amount of ammo before you need to reload,
and they frequently manufacture elemental weapons that can complement any existing armory. Their snipers, assault rifles, and repeaters are great for clearing groups of enemies with great prejudice. We all love shooting the weapons we hold, but not necessarily the reloading part. And that's where TDR comes in. TDR makes the reloading part of their weapons a thing of the past with their near instant reload speeds. It just means that other parts of the weapon suffer, like damage, accuracy, magazine size, and everything else. But don't let that dissuade you. They make some incredible SMGs, pistols, and rifles that make sure you are never caught without a bullet in the chamber in the middle of combat. Explosions. Torg loves explosions, and Torg thinks you'll love explosions as much as them when you're done firing one of their weapons. These guns can pack a serious punch with a fast fire rate to boot, so what's not to love? Explosions, however, can be a bit unruly, so be prepared for low accuracy and recoil when firing these guys. You'll find yourself relying on their shotguns, snipers, and rocket launchers to deal some serious damage in combat. Vladov are your true comrades on the battlefield. These Russian-inspired weapons hold a lot of ammo, have a high fire rate, and great accuracy, but they do suffer in the recoil department, so you better practice your recoil dampening. Thankfully, these weapons are strong, so you won't need to pass it to the soldier in line behind you in case of your untimely death, because there's no dying when you're holding one of Vladov's patented wide variety of assault rifles, shotguns, rocket launchers, repeaters, and pump-action snipers. Lastly, we have the ever-mysterious Iridian-made weaponry. Little is known about the Iridians still, but their weapons use the energy pulsing through Pandora as an ammo source. You'll never need to worry about packing enough ammo for these, but expect to wait for them to recharge after firing. These are very strong weapons that are held back by their low capacity, so use with caution. But in the right hands, I'm sure they can make a valuable asset. And that's all for the manufacturers on Pandora. I find it very difficult to talk about weapons in depth here because, well, the way they're used is very dependent on the player wielding them. Some players may love using Jacobs. Others may love the elemental powers that Maliwan provides. Some players might love TDR because of their fast reload speed combined with the SMGs they make. There's a little something to love on all fronts here. And what's most important when you look at them from a gameplay perspective is that they all offer positives or negatives over the competition. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to the combat equation, which makes the inclusion of 4 weapon slots so important. With 4 weapon slots, we can't have every type of weapon at our disposal, but it's still enough slots to make sure we can cover all of the elements we might need in the middle of combat. If there was one less or one more weapon slot, the whole combat equation becomes irreparably changed. There needs to be risk and reward baked into the system, and with 4 weapon slots, that balance is maintained. But how you choose to use your 4 weapon slots, well, that's up to you. You can have 4 assault rifles if you want, 4 rocket launchers, 2 revolvers, 2 shotguns. The loot system is your playground, allowing for alternative playstyles that fit exactly what a player might want. These playstyles will just need you to find alternative methods of sourcing ammo if you want to play that way. Now, my only real complaint is that despite every weapon coming from a different manufacturer with different pieces of colors and shapes and sizes, they all feel very samey to shoot. It can be hard to tell the difference between firing a Hyperion and a Vladov and an Atlas. It's not necessarily a bad thing, mind you. They don't need to feel different to fire, but if you've ever met a firearm nut in real life, they will happily tell you the intricacies of every real-world weapon, how they hold, how they fire, where the safety is, a weapon's sound, their recoil. These are all intricacies that Gearbox, I don't think, quite nailed here. This was the first time a weapon generation system was ever represented in a shooter before. There are a potential 17 million guns on offer here, and the variety of variables present is it's staggering, and that deserves to be recognized. It's a system that Gearbox would continue to iterate upon over time, but for a first-time effort, goddamn, did they do really well. Before we move on to shields, there's one thing I want to mention. Yes, most weapons on offer work really well, but I have a bone to pick with rocket launchers specifically. Firing a rocket launcher is very much a coin flip on whether it blows up everything in its impact zone to bits or gives them a slight nick. The majority of rocket launchers that you find will have a hard time justifying their existence, for the main reason being that they come with an absolutely abysmal combo of stats: poor damage, low ammo count, and atrocious fire rates make the rocket launcher subtype of weapons consistently a no-go in my book. I don't want to discount them entirely because they can be useful in situations where enemies group up. It's a situation that doesn't present itself very often, however, because enemy AI will force them to organize themselves differently. Gunners will stay in the back, chargers will force themselves forward, and so on. So I, as a player, have to make a decision. Would I rather shoot a slow-firing rocket to shoot a small group of enemies in the back and the front, or take an assault rifle with high ammo capacity and damage to shoot at everyone in the general vicinity? An assault rifle that will generally kill all of them much faster than a rocket ever could. All of this to say that if rocket launchers were more consistent, I would be more likely to recommend them. But in Borderlands, it's a hard pass. You may feel differently. If you enjoy rocket launchers, more power to you. They are just not for me. Now, since Borderlands is a sci-fi game, it only makes sense that we get access to full-body electromagnetic shields that can protect us from incoming damage in combat. Shields in Borderlands cover the entirety of armor pieces you might expect from a traditional ARPG, so we don't need to worry about helmets, chest armor, legs, none of that. It's a change that keeps the game moving forward. It doesn't want you worrying about silly stuff like that. We got shit to shoot. It's a smart change that only benefits the direction the game is aiming for. Shields only have a few stats we need to worry about, and those are capacity and recharge rate. They can spawn with bonuses such as providing higher health, passive health regeneration, resistances to certain elements, or faster regeneration once fully depleted. All pretty basic stuff. Some can even create shockwaves of certain elements once depleted, which can be great for fighting up close. I'm a big fan of passive health regeneration on shields when playing as Brick. My boy has thousands of hit points, so having them constantly regenerating helps me stay in combat longer. Shields are very basic altogether, but still just as important as the weapons you find along the way. Having a good shield is essential to survival, so keeping it up to date with your level is an easy way to make sure you're not falling into the second wind state in the middle of a gunfight. Grenade mods are the last part of the loot equation that we need to account for. Much like shields, they are all fairly basic. They can offer a variety of effects, such as shooting out bullets upon impact, sticking to enemies, teleporting to their thrown location, or even creating a shower of smaller grenades once they explode. My personal favorite grenade effect, Transfusion, sends out life-stealing streams that track down enemies, sucks up their health, and sends it back to you. So you can spam a bunch if you're hurting, and they will do the work of hunting down your target and heal you in the process. Grenades aren't super important in the grander scheme of combat, but they do fit a good niche of dealing damage to groups of enemies in the case of you not carrying any explosive weapon. My main issue with grenades is that they often feel very weak, requiring you to spam them if you want a chance of dealing any serious damage. So that's the loot of Borderlands. It's good. I like it. But it begs a different question. Is the generation any good? Well, yes and no. Item generation in terms of rarity is very good. You can find yourself relying on weapons of all types. White rarity all the way up to orange can be viable options, but it will always be better to opt for weapons of purple and orange rarity because of the amount of bonus affixes they can spawn with. These affixes can apply bonuses to a weapon's stats, so they can give bonus ammo capacity, better damage, higher recoil reduction, and so on. But the fact that even white weapons can be effective even in the later game makes it so you always are engaging with the system. I'm not saying rarity doesn't matter, it's just less important than it is in other ARPGs. No, my main issue with the game's loot is how it decides to roll the level on that loot. When a weapon is generated, it will roll based on certain level tiers, meaning level 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., which is fine, but it has the side effect of often generating weapons of tiers that are consistently below your current one. When you are level 30, you will be inundated with weapons in the level 15 and 20 tiers. As I play, I'm not finding weapons close to where I am in level, or even levels above what I am, unless I'm looking in a vending machine, for example. I am assaulted with worthless weapons that no longer serve a purpose, which devalues the overall loot hunt. When I open a red chest, I expect at least something good, but more often than not, it's weapons of lower tiers. That's not very fun from a player perspective. I want something that I can swap to, something that's at least my current level. So while rarity is good, the actual damage and levels of the weapons can be very stingy. It's the one thing bringing the whole loot economy down, sadly. If that would be fixed, I think the whole game would benefit. I guess if I had to give the system one benefit, it means that when you find a new weapon, it's significantly better than anything else you have. But now there's another problem. Finding that new powerful weapon has the side effect of you using that weapon more often than anything else you have equipped. That new weapon now becomes your new old reliable. It's a system that can be easily fixed by generating weapons within a certain spectrum closer to the player's level. That's it. I hope it's something that Gearbox accounts for later in the series. All that being said, Gearbox clearly understands what makes the loot chase so engaging. The chase for bigger number, the chase for stronger gun. Now that they have all of this down, they can continue to improve and innovate in the future. Let's get back to the story. With the third vault key piece returned to Tannis, she informs us of the fourth and final vault piece being held by her former Dahl colleague, Baron Flint. But to get to him, we need the help of a Claptrap with the only clearance to where this Flint guy is located. And here's the rub. This Claptrap is being held hostage by the Crimson Lance. Remember the Crimson Lance? The group that Commandant Steel Lady was talking about? Well, we finally get to meet him. The Crimson Lance are located in the abandoned settlement of Old Haven. They have turned the settlement into their new stronghold, replete with turrets and plenty of protection measures. I'm talking bullet-resistant riot shields, their own Scorpio turrets, just like Roland has, and an overwhelming amount of soldiers that crawl out of the woodwork every which way. So if you weren't ready for this, you're gonna have a hard time making your way to that Claptrap. These guys actually know their shit, but they don't last long with the use of some corrosive weapons that can literally eat its way through their armor. What kind of vault hunter would I be if I couldn't make my way through some heavily armored fascist goons? With Claptrap rescued, we finally have access to the salt flats and a path forward to Baron Flint.
Wow, you're not dead?
Years ago, when Dahl first began their search for the vault on Pandora, he was the company-appointed prison warden who worked alongside Tannis. He would command the prisoners in the manual labor while Tannis gave the dig orders. It was a professional and cordial relationship, but, well, that time is long since past. Flint and Tannis have both gone their separate ways for several reasons. One being the ever-present role that decreasing sanity plays in the equation. The other being that Flint punched Tannis' dog and took the vault key. So, when the search for the vault was dissolved by Dahl, Flint decided to keep all of the prisoners under his command, becoming the Baron of Bandits on Pandora as he sits upon a giant excavator in the Salt Flats. The assault on the Salt Flats and Baron Flint are pretty tame, all things considered, but we're finally getting to the point in the game where elemental weaponry is becoming more necessary. Bandits and badasses alike now have higher health pools and shields. Using a normal gun that shoots normal bullets isn't going to be the answer to every problem like it has been over the past 10 or so hours. Relying on elements like fire and shock are great for dealing with such wide swaths of bandits because of their lack of armor. The only thing you really need to look out for is their quantity. Sure, they may be weaker, but their strength comes in numbers. We shoot our way through Baron Flint's forces and eventually make our way up to him. The fight isn't anything special. It's another ad-filled bandit fest where we have to deal with a whole bunch of extra enemies in an attempt to reach him. Baron Flint is, much like every other humanoid boss in the game, a total pushover. He falls faster than a tower made of saltines. But now we finally have what we've been looking for this whole time. The fourth and final piece of the vault key.
Listen up, Merrick. There is no fourth key fragment. Tannis has joined us, and we now have possession of the completed key. She used you to get what she wanted. You've ignored my orders. Let's do a deal. Leave the planet now, and we won't pursue you. Do yourself a favor. Take advantage of my generosity while you still can.
Oops, Tannis lied to us and is working with the Crimson Lance now. She gave them the key, and now they're on their way to the vault after locking her up. Guess that's what I get for thinking loyalty would get me anywhere on Pandora. At this point, the game attempts to rush itself to the finish line by turning into a more linear set of zones. The Iridians, who were once thought to be long gone, are awake now thanks to the Crimson Lance disturbing their sleepy time. The Iridians are an interesting foe to fight because they are an inverse of everything we have been fighting so far. They have insanely large shields, but a sliver of health, which is some fantastic intermingling of gameplay and storytelling. They are an advanced alien race with out-of-this-world technology, but without it, they snap like a twig. What better way to fuck them up than with some electric bullets, huh? So, time to start filling a slot with a dedicated electric-type weapon in addition to a corrosive one, because we won't be fighting bandits anymore. The Crimson Lance is out in full force now, and they finally have what they wanted all along. They have the key and the power to hold on to it. But larger groups of enemies with dangerous firearms hasn't stopped our Vault Hunter before. We plow through the Crimson Lance forces to rescue Tannis, while they're continuing to do battle with the Iridians in the sky. She is sorry for the betrayal she did to us, or at least I think she is. Hard to tell with her. We restore systems to the rest of Pandora after the Crimson Lance deactivated them in an attempt to fast track their way to the vault, but since they've been so loud, our way there is more obvious than ever. And the path to the vault is a real blessing. We finally get to see green. The Iridians were hiding this growth from us the whole time underneath the planet's crust. It's lush. It's thriving, but we don't have time to think about that. If we hesitate, Steel will open the vault before we can even make it there. We gotta keep things moving. The path to the vault is a war zone. The Iridian ruins are now actually ruined as the Crimson Lance proceeds forward. It's a rough and grueling battle to the vault, with Crimson Lance and Iridian forces shooting not just at each other, but at us as well. Playing well is a necessity, swapping our weapons on the fly, keeping our health up, and prioritizing enemies in terms of threat. It's tricky, but it's the best the combat has felt in the game. It's an all-out war until we finally make our way to the vault. It really exists. It's here.
You have failed to listen to Commandant Steele. I've warned you time and again, yet you persist on ignoring my orders. The contents of the vault are rightfully the property of the Atlas Corporation. But you, you belong to me.
All this hard work with one final roadblock in front of us in the form of Commandant Steele. Oh! Guess Steel flew a little too close to the sun. And hold up, that's what was in the vault the whole time? A tentacle monster called the Destroyer? I mean, I'm not complaining, but like, this poses some interesting questions. Questions we'll have to ask later once the Destroyer is dead. The boss fight against the Destroyer is not very good, sadly. It's a stationary target with some very obvious weak spots. You shoot the tentacles, you shoot its eye, generally everything that sticks out. It does the occasional dangerous laser, but that can easily be avoided if you hide behind the ruins. It's not a hard fight. You shoot and shoot until it dies, just like everything else. And now the Destroyer is no more and the vault is closed. 200 years of waiting only to find out that it was just some fucking monster straight out of a hentai. And the game just kind of ends there. That's Borderlands. Okay. So, a few things. There was nothing in the vault except the Destroyer. Did the Iridians put it there? If they did, why did they put it there? I mean, the name The Destroyer feels like it has a lot of weight attached to it. What did it destroy? Did it wipe out the majority of the Iridians before the war for the vault began in earnest? These are questions we're going to be asking for a while, or at least until the release of Borderlands 2. With the credits wrapping up, we're treated to a cutscene of, wait, hold the fucking phone. What is that? What does that say? What does that satellite have Hyperion branding? And it has the leech speak for Angel on it. Wait a sec. Oh my god.
I need you to stay calm and don't let on that anyone is talking to you.
Still haven't found the vault.
Have you finished those errands?
Holy shit. I've been played like a damn fiddle. I've just been a tool in Hyperion's pocket this whole time, while Hyperion played the role of a passive Andy. They sent Claptrap units to Pandora as both a goodwill gesture and as a way to guide unsuspecting vault hunters to the vault. They implemented the new U stations to ensure your journey to the vault wouldn't be impeded by something as insignificant as death itself. Not to mention, they get paid a handsome sum for every revive they give you. And now they have a clean path to the vault, now that you have collected the key and have mowed down literal armies of bandits, fauna, as well as the personal private military of the Atlas Corporation. Meaning, they have one less thing to worry about as they attempt to get what they want. It all feels very would you kindly a la BioShock 1, where you are subconsciously told where to go, what to do, and who to kill. All part of Atlas's efforts to program the player as a sleeper cell to do his bidding through innocuous wording. While not exactly the same, it does give off that vibe, which does make sense considering that 1, both are games published by 2K, and 2, Borderlands was released a little over 2 years after BioShock hit store shelves. I'm sure there was a bit of an influence going around the industry at that point. The goal to subvert player expectations in a way that feels non-intrusive. And Borderlands succeeds in this effort, I think. But this all begs the question, what is Hyperion's goal in all of this? What do they plan on doing with all of your dirty work? And now, what happens to Pandora? If it hasn't shot you in the face with how subtle it is yet, we can see a lot of parallels to Greek mythology in the story of Borderlands. with its biggest identifier being the planet of Pandora. Pandora, in common Greek myth, is the first human created by Hephaestus by order of Zeus. She is used as a narrative device to explain the evils of humanity. Pandora, the planet, on a surface level reading, is just Pandora's box, a planet that holds immense evil on the surface and within its crust, and potentially within the vault. And unleashing it can mean devastation for everyone involved in its opening. It's a reading that holds true, but it also matches up with the reading of Pandora as a literary element representing the evil of humanity. Corporations and individuals alike flock to Pandora, driven by a lust for power and greed, and the planet gives it to them, albeit at an incredibly high cost of bodily injury or harm. The Iridians themselves serve as an analog to the gods themselves, sealing the destroyer in the vault almost as an act of self-preservation for the universe as a whole. It's them saying, we know what the fuck is in there, you don't want to let it out. And we see the hubris of man, a hubris often attached to the endless pursuit of capitalism. The corpos are saying, we don't care what's in the vault. We can use it to serve our needs, no matter how small or large. You can't tell us what to do. It's hubris. It's the hubris of humanity, and hubris can lead to true evil. It shows the player that there is a lot happening beyond the scenes that they themselves are not privy to. They're ultimately just a cog in the machine of corporate greed, with each company always attempting to one-up each other, all in the name of capitalism. It's just some good old-fashioned dramatic irony.
Yeah, this fucking rules, actually.
It goes to show you that the writers of Borderlands can do fantastic things with the material they created. We are also treated to a cutscene of Claptrap getting struck with lightning and becoming the interplanetary ninja assassin Claptrap. Just more and more questions keep popping up, man. But this one we will actually get an answer to before we wrap up the game. So after all of this has happened, with Commandant Steele dead and the destroyer locked away or potentially killed, we are treated to some loot chests that are actually packing some good weaponry, and that's it. It feels a bit anticlimactic. But there is something positive about the ending here. In an age where it feels like ARPGs that release these days need to have this in-depth post-game with an absurd amount of endlessly repeating and scalable challenges, it's nice to just have a game say, we're done, it's over. The brevity of the experience, despite some padding that I feel could have been implemented better into the leveling curve, is incredibly refreshing. All in all, the base game only took me about 15 hours to wrap, and that was by doing every side quest along the way. With the main story of Borderlands wrapped up, now we can sink our teeth into the DLC that accompanies the game. DLC that takes heavy inspiration from Bethesda's approach to content around that time, meaning bite-sized experiences that can be wrapped in about 2 to 3 hours each. This was a time where developers were still experimenting heavily with the DLC format in an attempt to find the sweet spot between price, length, and content ratios. And in the process of experimentation, Gearbox found a way to somehow make the process of playing these DLCs after wrapping up the main game an absolute pain in the ass in ways I didn't think possible. This is something I will expand on about halfway through discussing them. With that said, let's jump into our first DLC, the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned. The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned is a direct follow-up to where we left off story-wise, albeit while taking a more silly spin. Our ever-faithful narrator Marcus is telling a story to his kid, someone else's kid.
Dark and stormy night. Sheesh. On a distant corner of Pandora, where few men dare to tread. With the journey to find the elusive vault behind them, our fearless adventurers set off into the trees of...
What's a tree?
Oh, for the angel's sake! It's a plant that grows out of the ground really tall.
Like this?
No more interruptions.
He tells the story of Dr. Ned, who's definitely not just Dr. Zed in a mustache. Dr. Ned has established himself in a nearby area called Jacob's Cove, a lumber mill established by the Jacobs Corporation. What, hang on. Lumber mill? On Pandora? Where there are no trees? Yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. Turns out the town has been overrun by zombies, and Dr. Ned has something to do with it. Go handle it. We see the writers of Borderlands really start to play with both the narrative framing of the series through Marcus as an unreliable narrator, what the world of Pandora can be capable of, as well as what the Borderlands IP can be. And how do they do this? Zombies. Lots of zombies. Lots and lots of zombies.
Which was the style at the time.
With games like Left 4 Dead, Dead Rising, Call of Duty World at War, and Resident Evil 5 all being massive successes. And I'd be remiss to mention the zombie renaissance taking place in cinemas during the 2000s. If a week didn't go by without a new zombie movie to bring people into the theaters, something wasn't right. All of this acted as both the influence and impetus for the zombie island of Dr. Ned. The gameplay is more of what you would expect from Borderlands, but now all of the enemies are replaced with zombies and zombie reskins of existing enemies. It can be enjoyable at points and lets you exercise the use of weapons that deal crazy amounts of splash damage. So get those rocket launchers and grenades ready because there are going to be a lot of zombies to kill. The writing present in the zombie island of Dr. Ned, while still funny and in line with the base game for the most part, displays a worrying trend that the writers of Borderlands have. We can see them starting to form a reliance on pop culture references. We briefly discussed popular culture earlier in the video. It's built into the identity of Borderlands, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the zombie island of Dr. Ned's dependence on pop culture references does a lot to undermine the hard work that took place before in the base game. These references are, I believe, done in reverence for the source material that they borrow from, but are a little too in your face about them. For example, near the end of the expansion, we find an audio log for a character named Harry talking to his pet named Skaggy.
Like, whoa, Skaggy, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. The misery machine broke down. Like, I know that's not news, but I found this town and there's like no one there. I finally ran into an old doctor who said there was zombies throughout the haunted forest. He seems like a nice old man, so I thought I'd help him out. Who needs the rest of the gang, right?
Like, it's just Scooby-Doo. It's Shaggy and Scooby. The actor does his best job to replicate his Shaggy voice, which is fun and all, but it's also like, why are we doing this? Look, I get it. The zombie island of Dr. Ned is supposed to be camp. Turbo camp. Like, they gave Zed a mustache and just made him evil. They get it. It's dumb and that's okay. And considering that it's all framed as a bedtime story makes it all the more goofy. So I will give it a pass just this once. That doesn't mean I can't slam it though. The main problem I have with this reference is how in your face it is. It crosses the boundary of being a fun nod that can play into the existing world established and instead being about understanding the reference first and foremost to get the joke. Humor is complicated, it's nuanced, and it's probably most important to consider very subjective. I totally get that. The entire existence of this whole audio log just baffles me because of how hard it tries to justify its existence within the world it's being added to. In doing so, it stops being funny and just makes me think, why this? Why is Scooby-Doo reference in your game where one shot of a sniper rifle can be enough to turn a low-level enemy into giblet salad? It's very weird. What began as obscure one-liner flavor text and in-game challenges will begin to metamorphosize into something nefarious. It's something that still ripples through the franchise to this day. This is a topic we'll be discussing throughout the retrospective series, and it'll be interesting to dissect the evolution of it over time. What crosses the line? What is too on the nose? Well, we'll find that out together. The zombie island of Dr. Ned most notably does not take place in the usual desert wasteland that we have come to expect on Pandora. We are instead treated to a gloomy swamp replete with soggy trees and ankle-high waters, perfect to set the scene and give some more depth to the Jacobs Corporation, whose lumber site we trudge through as we progress. This is our first real interaction with any corporation directly within the Borderlands universe. We get to see what makes Jacobs a corporation just like any other, the constant disregard of human life in an attempt to chase profits. This is still Borderlands after all. The DLC sees us surviving waves of enemy combatants as we wait for objectives to finish. Very Left 4 Dead. It's a joke that's played out a few too many times throughout the DLC. I still thought they were genuinely entertaining and a great homage to zombie media. It's also very clear that these were implemented as an attempt to pad out the DLC as much as they could. Backtracking also plays a vital role in the DLC, as they removed all fast travel locations from the surrounding areas of Jacob's Cove. You can almost taste that 2009 DLC philosophy with how egregious the padding is. The DLC only lasts about 3 hours as we clear out the swamps and lumber mill and eventually make our way to the evil Dr. Ned.
Now, I'm pissed.
We kill him and oh, a fake out ending, how fun. Now here's an evil zombie version.
It's not over yet.
The actual fight against the zombified version of Dr. Ned is interesting, but has this fuck-ass move that can kill you instantly through some insane hitbox manipulation. If I had to rate this DLC out of 10, you get a solid 5. Nothing to write home about. Let's move on. By this point in development, you can really tell that the writing team at Gearbox understands what they are really capable of in the universe. Because the intro to Mad Moxx's Underdome Riot, the second DLC, starts with a powder keg of some truly fantastic exposition.
My first husband was a dirtbag and a cheat. My second husband was fun. I figured by then that I deserved a toy. All for myself, and that's what I got. Still wish I hadn't broken my toy. My third husband was good with numbers. And his hands. We're still friends. Kinda. We're civil. I'm looking for my fourth. You know, on the prowl. I don't know when I'll meet him or where I'll meet him. But he's out there.
No filler, no fluff, just our leading lady, Mad Moxxi, telling you what she's all about. She's a romantic, she loves violence, and she loves the finer things in life like a good round in the sack, and she's not afraid to talk about it. I say all of this in praise for Mad Moxxi as a character because the DLC she is named after is, well, it's just kinda whatever. It's a fairly basic horde survival arena with the narrative framing of Moxxi as the arena's MC. If Gearbox had released this DLC without Moxxi, I don't think there would be a single redeeming factor about it because of how long it overstays its premise. The idea for the DLC is simple. Plop the players into an arena where they can engage in round-based survival with modifiers that shake up existing gameplay. There are 3 arenas total that the player can fight through. Each arena has 5 rounds with 5 waves each, totaling in 25 waves for each arena that they will need to kill their way through. The only narrative thing pushing this event forward is that whoever wins this arena challenge gets to be Moxxi's next betrothed. While not a lot of narrative, it serves as some great character writing to show how Moxxi has her priorities in order. She's here for a good time, not a long time, and neither are her husbands from the sound of it. The problem with Mad Moxxi's Underdome Riot is how repetitive it can get. Once you've done one arena, you've basically done everything it has to offer. Each arena can take upwards of an hour to complete, as you have to work your way through all 25 waves without dying. And after the first 5 waves, I'm already starting to get bored. The modifiers are introduced as a way to mix up the combat, like turning on low gravity, giving certain weapon types extra damage, and buffing up enemy health and shields. It's fine, but gets dull really fast when there's no other reason to be there. The arenas scale to your current level and you don't get any experience by participating. What's worse, you don't even get any loot until a boss wave, which is every 5 waves. And the loot they drop isn't even that good. So why am I even here? I love Moxxi's commentary in between waves, it's fun, but the combat is not. Rating 3 out of 10, I don't fucking care, this DLC just kinda blows. After we had finished up one arena of Mad Moxxi's Underdome Riot, I decided it would be best for us to split it up a bit. 25 waves of combat 3 times in a row is a bit much and can get stale pretty quickly. So let's move on. The secret armory of General Knoxx is both some of the best and worst Borderlands can be. It offers great world building, design, and an insane final act. It's still very much a product of its time, however. It's a DLC that takes a lot of what the base game does poorly and emphasizes it to be a primary part of the experience. The DLC starts us at T-Bone Junction, a landlocked city that sits between an interconnected sea of highways and dust dunes. It's by far the most linear DLC for the game, taking place in what is, for all intents and purposes, a straight line, with the T-Bone Junction sitting dead in the middle of all of it. The linearity itself is not an issue and is actually quite refreshing from a gameplay perspective after navigating a decent amount of zones with quest objectives scattered from end to end. But before we begin in earnest, you might have noticed something. I jumped from level 40 to 50. What gives? I've been fairly accommodating to the game so far, I think. Borderlands, for all of its bumps and nicks, is still a fantastic game. But here, I'm gonna dig deep into an actual problem the game has. One that I cannot overlook. After we wrapped up the first arena of Mad Moxxi's Underdome Riot, we loaded into Secret Armory of General Knoxx, expecting it to scale to my level 40 or something around that point. That is until I load into T-Bone Junction, the starting area. I find out that the DLC starts at level 35 and doesn't scale at all. Weird, I thought. So then I loaded into Claptrap's new Robot Revolution, the final DLC, to see if we could continue from there. And I ran into the same problem. The first quest for the area was capped at level 35. What gives? Well, Borderlands 1 follows the leveling philosophy of Diablo 2 pretty much to the letter, meaning you play through the campaign with each act and every area within that act having a baked-in level requirement. So in Diablo 2, you have to level and gear up properly to push your way through, completing Act 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and wrap it all up with a nice pretty bow by killing the Lord of Terror himself. Then you as a player are presented with a choice. You can stop playing, or you can keep going by playing through the game again on Nightmare difficulty. You keep your level, your gold, and all of your items, but now the game is more challenging. Enemies are harder to kill. Elites spawn more often. Enemies have more resistances, and you are now weaker. But it allows you to keep leveling and playing until you are satisfied. And if you still haven't had your fill, you can go for round 3 on Hell difficulty, leveling even higher and getting better and better loot. Borderlands does the same thing, but to a lighter extent. It offers a second playthrough option where your gear and resistances aren't downscaled, but enemies are higher level, have more health, and hit harder in general. So, getting higher level loot is essential to compensate. It all sounds pretty good, right? I'm enjoying the game, so of course I'm going to keep playing. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the DLCs are now too hard for you. Yep, you have to break your gameplay and narrative flow to bum rush your way through the main story, almost completing it a second time just so you can play the secret armory of General Knoxx and Claptrap's new robot revolution at an enjoyable difficulty. And what's even worse is that despite Claptrap's new robot revolution coming after the secret armory of General Knoxx in a narrative and release order, it somehow has an even lower level requirement starting at around level 42. So while you're not forced to play through Claptrap's new robot revolution, it just makes the most sense from a gameplay progression standpoint. Why would I play through the main game just to get to level 50 to play the secret armory of General Knoxx, just to get popped out at around level 55 and then plow through Claptrap's new robot revolution at a higher level? There is no easy answer here. You as a player are forced to make an executive decision. How do you want to proceed? You can play the DLC at a higher level and plow through it just because, or you can tailor your own gameplay experience to be around the same level as the second playthrough requirements, even though they do not make sense from a progression standpoint. So I decided that progressing through the main story a second time to get to level 42 so I could start Claptrap's new robot revolution was the better option. I played through it and got popped out at around level 48, which means I am still too underleveled to start the secret armory of General Knoxx. So now I have to jump back to the main story again, plow through more content just so I can hit that level 50 requirement in order to have a fun experience. Calling it incredibly unintuitive would be a massive understatement. I'm sure with hindsight, Gearbox realized that this implementation of leveling as it pertains to story is a mess. The fact that these problems weren't considered and were properly accounted for in the 2023 re-release of the game is beyond strange to me. It left me incredibly frustrated. So if you ever come back to play Borderlands like I did, please keep that in mind and plan accordingly, because the game won't do that for you. All right, let's get back to it. The secret armory of General Knoxx was Gearbox playing with a lot of features, seeing what they could improve on. They took a look over weapons, enemy variety, pacing, riding, and gave it all a spin. After the untimely death of Commandant Steele, the Crimson Lance have decided to go all in on Pandora. All hands are on deck here, meaning we get to encounter a brand new subset of Crimson Lance units, including jetpack flyers, elemental commandos that have higher aptitudes with certain elements, and the imposing Devastators, large mech suits that can pack a punch both up close and from a distance. Makes sense that they're bringing out the big guns as we make our way to the Crimson Lance Armory. How are we getting to the armory, you ask? By car. Scooter, and by extension vehicles, are super important to this DLC. We will be driving a lot here. A lot. That's because there are no fast travels present in this DLC, just like the zombie island of Dr. Ned. Meaning, if you have a quest, you will be driving from objective to objective. Oh, 2009 DLC padding, how I missed you dearly. I mentioned very early in the video about issues I have with vehicles in Borderlands, so this looks like the perfect time to talk about it. A deeper issue I have with vehicular combat in the game is how it scales in the later levels of the game. Vehicles, I believe, scale their health pool based on the player's current level, meaning the higher your level, the more health your car has. The same applies to the vehicle's weapon damage. But as we get into vehicle combat at around the level 50 area, the underlying math equation starts to fall apart. Damage might be scaling, but I feel there's a bug affecting vehicle health where it does not scale properly. So some bandit can literally drive by, pump a few bullets into your runner, and it will detonate with you inside of it without much time to react. And in the secret armory of General Knoxx specifically, you will be finding a lot of these Crimson Lance drones that spawn along the highway. These guys have crazy amounts of shields, which makes it harder for normal weapons to bust through. Normal weapons like, I don't know, the ones we have on our cars? These MFs will hover over you, put a few bullets into your runner, and blow it to bits like it's nothing. Calling it incredibly frustrating would be a massive understatement. For a DLC that wants us to use vehicles often as a primary way to combat the opposition, You would think they would give them more health so we could actually stand a fighting chance, but it has an adverse effect actually. Instead of fighting, we end up driving past every potential combat encounter just so we don't have to run back to the nearest catch-a-ride after our vehicle spontaneously combusts. Why fight and get blown up when we're trying to get shit done and can't fast travel? It's bad. Boo. I really don't like them, so let's talk more about what makes this DLC so fun. The writing. Something that has been a consistently strong part of Borderlands, even through all the DLC, with maybe a few hiccups here and there. But in this DLC, I think it shines the brightest. We can see the writers at Gearbox start to play with the idea of gameplay and narrative intersecting more often. Characters are more represented here than they have been previously, constantly chiming in to tell us of their motivations, their objectives, being their armchair merc, always listening and never judging. The two most prevalent characters here are Athena and the titular General Knoxx himself. At a young age, Athena was trained to be an assassin under the tutelage of Atlas and the Crimson Lance, along with other women in her unit. All of them were sent to Pandora under the order of General Knoxx to help clean up the place, but Athena had other plans. While on Pandora, she attempted to find her long-lost sister Jess, but things get messy. Sometime before we meet the two, Knoxx has ordered the execution of a village where Jess lived, and in the confusion, Athena killed her. Since then, she vowed to destroy Atlas, Knoxx, and anything related to the two. She defects from Atlas and teams up with our Vault Hunter, their goals now aligned. She's a woman who's all business, and that's something I can respect. I love the kind of woman who will actually just kill me. You know, when I left the house today, I was thinking, damn, I really wish some hot chick would paint my brains all over some fucking hallway. And here we are. I mean, really just absolutely destroy me. Knoxx, our other lead, is such a great character. A disillusioned general who is days away from retirement. A man fed up with management and corporate politics. But also a man who was sent to Pandora by his higher-ups after some no-name Vault Hunter starts causing shit with the Crimson Lance. He is so fed up with everything, like a grandpa who doesn't want to be here at all, and I love that for him.
All right, this is General Knoxx. I don't really want to be here. This planet smells like hemorrhoids wrapped in bacon. I sent Steel to this planet to take care of this little problem, and also because, seriously, have you heard her? She talks all the time. And hello, have you met our friend the Sun? So, I guess, thanks for turning her into a meat killer. Also, I'm gonna kill you and stuff. Cheers, mate.
Knoxx clearly doesn't give a shit about anything and is more than content with assailing you with insults as you progress through the DLC. And with hindsight firmly in grasp, this was Gearbox setting the stage with how they would handle Handsome Jack in the sequel. A person of power throwing everything they have at you verbally and physically from a gilded throne far out of reach. It's a really fun dynamic because when you finally make it to the villain that has been harassing you the whole game, it's super satisfying to finally put a bullet in their brain. Which makes this next point kinda devastating. The boss fight against General Knoxx is atrocious. Actually, certifiably, by a matter of fact, the worst fight in the game. Knoxx as a combatant appears imposing in his massive mech suit. Even his intro cutscene makes you think he's going to be trouble as he decides to off himself with a warhead because you took too long to get to him. You think he's going to get you in one hit, but nope. Every attack he makes against you makes you feel like you got shoved by a 9-year-old on the playground. Sure, it has some push, but it sure as shit doesn't hurt. And that's for the whole fight, from start to finish. It all boils down to shooting Knoxx's head for 30 minutes while he summons some ads once he hits a damage threshold. Better hunker down and put some Subway Surfers up, man, because we're going to be here a while. Elementals don't work on him, which are a necessity at this level. Body shots deal minimal damage because of his armor. So what am I supposed to do here as a player? The fight exemplifies everything wrong that could go wrong with an action RPG system. A system where numbers are everything. If an enemy has a ridiculous health count and insane armor, the fight could turn into sitting around pumping bullets into a literal sponge. It's not fun, it's not engaging, it's just waiting. But why is Knoxx like this? Well, part of me thinks it's because he did have so much buildup. The DLC is named after this dude, and we're raiding his armory. Of course he's going to be a big deal. Gearbox wanted to make this fight feel epic in both scale and length, but they failed pretty dramatically in both respects because it's not engaging in either category. You can have a lengthy boss fight, but it will require a lot of moves and phases to keep things interesting as you play. And you can make a boss big, but there are compromises that have to come with that as well. Larger enemies require a larger arena, generally more health, and moves that can affect the whole arena. Another thing that springs to mind is that this is Gearbox's attempt to make something akin to a raid boss that is common in action RPGs, where groups of players need to be present to take down a massive and powerful foe, an uber boss from something like Diablo, for instance. But Knoxx as a combatant doesn't really fit here, considering everything we've encountered so far. He's a Devastator reskin with a few extra moves. It's disappointing. So why else would Knoxx be this annoying to fight? Well, let's take a look at that DLC name again. His Secret Armory. The whole reason we're here. And holy hell, does it live up to the name. This is what Borderlands is all about, baby. A literal mountain of loot to sort through, examine, and equip. All it took was some super shitty boss fight to justify its existence. So maybe it wasn't all that bad. As we enter the armory, a plethora of red chests appear in front of our very eyes, lining every wall and corner of every room. It's enough to make any player salivate with the potential. Let your dopamine have a field day. But nothing good lasts forever. After we begin our raid in the armory, Athena calls over the EchoNet to let us know that she has to blow up the munitions sitting in the armory. The Crimson Lance is all but finished on Pandora with the loss of Knoxx. This final act of retribution is just the kiss of death she's been waiting for. She lets us know we only have 3 minutes to loot the armory, to take anything we want, so make it quick. The timer is vital to what makes this moment so memorable. And if you had played Borderlands before, this moment has probably stuck with you ever since. The loot makes it worth it, sure, but there is too much of it for a single person to handle, let alone an actual group of players. Being told you only have 3 minutes to grab as much as you can with a limited inventory forces you to ask a lot of questions as a player. How many chests can I open? What can I toss and what can I swap out of my inventory? What's most important to take with me out of the armory? Did I miss anything in that last room? It is exhilarating, dangerous, and most importantly, fun. It takes what the game has done so well, making you care about the loot and forcing you to act on your feet, opening up everything, doing quick eyeball assessments, and fucking booking it right at the very end. This is a defining feat that no other game has been able to replicate for me. An easy 7 out of 10, a rating only brought down by the vehicles and the poor excuse for a final boss against General Knoxx. This is the narrative peak of Borderlands. The authoritarian rule of the Crimson Lance over Pandora has been taken care of. The Vault Hunter now has a massive amount of firearms and money, more than they know what to do with. Everything feels tied up, which makes the next and final DLC all the more confusing. The last DLC for Borderlands, Claptrap's new Robot Revolution, follows up on the out-of-left-field ending cutscene from the base game. We finally get some information on the interplanetary ninja assassin Claptrap, and this will be his Robot Revolution. From a narrative standpoint, we are coming hot off the heels of the secret armory of General Knoxx. We've destroyed Atlas. Pandora is safe. Which begs the question, why is there another DLC here? Well, Borderlands was a huge success for Gearbox. And I'm sure they wanted to capitalize on their success as best as they could by giving people more of what makes Borderlands so fun. More loot, more missions, more levels, and more baddies to shoot. And that is Claptrap's new Robot Revolution in a nutshell. With Atlas out of commission, Hyperion management personally comes in to clean up the remains of the situation on Pandora, putting you on their payroll for a short time to assist in their efforts. Until they eventually have no use for you, of course. Claptrap's new Robot Revolution is a sort of narrative victory lap for Borderlands. We'll be cleaning up loose ends from the base game as well as threads from prior DLCs. That means we'll be fighting an absurd amount of reused enemies from the base game and the DLC, but not much else is very new. 2009 DLC called, yada yada, you get the drill. Claptrap's new Robot Revolution takes our little yellow boxed buddy and puts him into the leading villain role as he attempts to assimilate all remaining life on Pandora into a Claptrap hive mind. Narratively, Borderlands is best when it rides that fine line between serious and silly, but this DLC takes all of the serious out and replaces it with Claptrap's signature stupid vibe. And I think that's a good time. Claptrap makes a fun villain because of how his incompetence is matched by his never-ending tenacity. He is consistently in over his head, always putting himself in a never-ending series of bad decisions, but he always has a pep in his step, and that's what I love about him. The gimmick of Claptrap's new Robot Revolution wears thin pretty quickly when you realize that the DLC is just the reuse of enemies we've already seen, but have Claptrap pieces haphazardly attached to their faces with a trap suffix attached to their names. It's low effort, very much in line with Claptrap's whole attempt at a takeover. So it has that going for it. The only thing of note for this DLC is finally some face-to-face communication with a corporation. Now that we're on Hyperion's payroll, we get in contact with Mr. Blake, Senior Vice President of Mercenary Relations and Tourism for Hyperion. While we don't get much interaction with him as a character, his presence gives us a better understanding of Hyperion as a company. We get to see that they are always business first, a very appearance-focused approach to management, because for Hyperion, appearances are everything. Appearances that are also in jeopardy because their stupid fucking robot steward bots are causing an uprising. It's an active PR nightmare for them. Mr. Blake puts us to the task: take down Claptrap, all of his cronies, and save Pandora one last time. If you're ready for more of the same, then this DLC is for you, because it is by the book. It takes us back to the normal locales of Pandora, so expect to see a lot of sand, rocks, caves, and rubble. Home sweet home. The only thing that sets this DLC apart from everything else that came before is its approach to being a sort of narrative boss rush. Claptrap knows he's very much in over his head, so he has taken every major threat we've faced so far and has trapified them in an attempt to stop us. We'll be refighting Dr. Ned, General Knoxx, and even Commandant Steele from the base game, who never even had a proper boss fight, all of whom are not happy to be resurrected from the dead without their consent. Their bodies are actively being defiled by a stupid robot who pretends to give donkey punches while performing doggy style. This is their life now.
Just kill me. Let me die with my dignity. Check me out. Yeah, get down.
Other than that, there is nothing else of substance to really discuss, except that Claptrap kills Marcus at the very end. We fight a giant sandcrawler summoned by Claptrap, we destroy it, we kill Claptrap, and that's it. Mr. Blank is thankful for our assistance, and he rewards us with a plundering of the local Hyperion gift shop's basement. It's filled with a decent amount of chests, so it wasn't all bad. My personal rating, 6 out of 10. And with that, that is all of the DLC Borderlands has to offer. Overall, a pretty subpar experience. Gearbox attempted a lot of things with these DLCs, with narrative, combat, vehicles, comedy, leveling, and so on. And with the success of the base game of Borderlands, it emboldened them to experiment, which, I think is totally fine. They finally found something that worked for them. They made a universe that people enjoyed, and they knew that the game still had some rough spots that could, use some spit shining. In the end, they still delivered more of what people enjoyed. The quality of the DLCs may have been a bit sporadic, but at least it wasn't completely a ripoff. Gearbox knows what works now. They have a fantastic bedrock for their future games, their future DLC. A mountain of feedback is at their disposal. Now, Gearbox just needs to implement it. So that's it. That's Borderlands, man. And Jesus, what a journey it has been. Borderlands is a game that means a lot to me. It's a genuinely smart game that likes to play dumb. There is a lot of nuance hiding beneath the surface that Gearbox likes to play coy to. Nuance represented in the gameplay, in the loot, and the underlying narrative. I know in today's ecosystem, it's deeply unpopular to praise Gearbox. Their practices deserve scrutiny, and rightly so in a lot of respects. But back in 2009, when Borderlands was released, I think they deserved all of the praise in the world for finding the gold on the ceiling the industry clearly craved. Gold that has stood the test of time. Borderlands, despite all of its flaws, is still a fantastic game, worth a playthrough. Worth several playthroughs, mind you. So I think I've said all I can about Borderlands by this point. This has been a long video. One that has taken a lot out of me as I'm just now wrapping up my 4-hour recording session. But I'm glad it's finally completed. If you are still in the market for a full series retrospective, just recently I've opened a Patreon, so if you'd be willing to support me there, I'd greatly appreciate it. Memberships start at $3 and your name could appear in the video. Any support is welcome, and I deeply appreciate it. My life will be going through a massive shakeup in the next month, so the next video will come only when it's ready. Please keep an eye out for it. It probably won't be released until next year. Now, with all that said, this has been Testing Triangles. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for Borderlands 2, a retrospective. Catch a ride.